Shooting the Seal. Saving the Seals, Series Book 1. Written by Leslie North. Narrated by Matt Haynes. Chapter 1. Gage Jackelson decided he'd rather be in the middle of a firefight on open water than standing in front of a green screen in nothing more than his jeans, feeling like a hunk of meat on a slab. What looked like a Gothic fairy, heavy on the black eyeliner and dyed hair, and complete with what looked like a pink tutu trimmed in more black, flitted about him, dusting powder on him and muttering about cheekbones. This was ridiculous. He stood, arms folded, wondering how he could get out of this, but he couldn't. He had to start thinking of this like a mission, so he let the fairy fuss. The elevator pinged, and he hoped the photographer had finally arrived, and he could wrap up this charade, get the intel they needed, and get his shirt back on. The things he'd do for a friend, even a dead one. Hearing steps, he glanced over and watched a young woman walk into the studio. Okay, warehouse was a better name for it. A loft with more ceiling space than floor space, white walls and photos hung on them. Dirt glazed the windows, but he had enough light on him that he kept breaking a light sweat. The woman stepped in front of him, head cocked, and stared at him. He could feel his skin warm. He'd been on the other side of that kind of assessment, had been eyeing the girls just last week, with Scotty making his usual crude remarks and Spencer sipping his tequila. The woman would have rated a second look and one of Scotty's terrible pickup lines. Eyes as blue as the Mediterranean Sea fixed on him. Tight jeans encased long legs. He'd always been a leg man, and a white silk blouse said she had money enough to afford good clothes. Golden hair had been pulled back from a heart-shaped face. She didn't wear much makeup that he could see, and he caught a flash of gold earrings. But those eyes kept pulling him back for another look. Who the hell was she? The photographer's girlfriend? Turning, she walked over to the camera, not a digital, but something big and old and also expensive looking. She stared through the lens and then looked up at him. Gage Jackelson. She said the name as if she was thinking of something else. She propped a fist on one hip. I keep wondering why the Navy SEAL agreed to a cover shoot. A guy could feel quite warm wrapped up in her sultry tone. He lifted an eyebrow. And you are? She stepped up and reached out to shake his hand. Anna Middleton. Gage nodded. The photos on the walls all had Middleton signed to them. He was going to guess not the photographer's wife, no ring on her finger. He fought the urge to hold her hand longer than he should, but he caught a flush of color in her cheeks. She tilted her head up to look at him, and he could swear he caught a flash of surprise in those sea-blue eyes. Pulling her hand back, he watched as she tucked it behind her back before turning to grab the camera off its stand. Did Linda explain how this works? Linda, the Gothic fairy, flashed a smile at him. She trailed a finger down his forearm. You'll do great. He's set, Anna. She ducked away. Gage glanced at Anna and her camera. How hard is it to smile for the camera? Gage drawled. His fingers stopped tingling since he touched her, and he was itching to do so again, or possibly run his fingers through that soft cloud of hair. You'd be surprised. Her wide mouth twitched at the corners. We'll start without props, but Linda will bring a few in later. Props? Gage lifted both eyebrows. Anna took a couple of shots, the camera clicking. We use a green screen so we can drop in any background, but it's easier to use anything that you will be touching in the actual photos. Stepping back to the tripod, Anna set the camera on it. She looked through the camera lens, paused, and looked back up at him. You're looking a little stiff. Linda gave a snort of amusement, tried to hide it with a cough. Gage smiled, and Anna gave Linda a dirty look before turning back to Gage. Any chance you can relax, loosen up, look less like you're standing in front of a camera? Gage forced a smile. He was going to kill Scotty and Spencer for talking him into being the one to come to Corin Williams Publishing. This is for Nick, he told himself again. And they had damn little to go on right now. An encrypted flash drive and one personal photo that had been of Nick and Natalie. They hadn't even found Nick's awards and honors for service, but the photo had led them here. Mr. Jackelson. Gage shook himself out of his mood. He'd been starting to frown. He had to watch that. They'd talked it over, and all had agreed that busting in here with questions might not get them far. They needed intel, meaning they needed to get inside this place and poke around, which was why he was here, with his shirt off. It's Lieutenant. The correction came out automatically, but quiet. Not like he was in uniform, so she'd know. Lieutenant Jackelson, or Gage. She nodded, but the smile looked forced now. Lieutenant, it would be nice if you seemed a bit less stiff. Gage offered a smile. Uncomfortable. Why don't you tell us a story or describe something in detail? Like a first date? He was enjoying watching her blush. That wide mouth of hers tightened. How about instructions for changing a tire? Or talk about SEAL training. The point is to stop thinking about what you're doing. And how my shirt is missing. Gage realized that she was right. He needed to get out of his head. He needed to stop thinking about why he was really there. He wasn't going to search the place anytime soon, but he had a great view to check security and access for later. He already knew Nick's Natalie was linked to the place. Natalie hadn't shown up for Nick's funeral or his wake. They were still trying to track her down in the hopes that she might know more about why Nick was dead. A photo on the cover of a book had led them here, and Gage lost the toss of the draw for the initial recon. As soon as he'd walked in the door, he'd been mistaken for a cover model, and that was too good an opportunity to turn down. He'd played it that he could use the extra cash, but now he wondered if he should have just broken in after hours. Lieutenant, that husky, sexy voice snapped him out of his thoughts again. He looked at Anna and found the blue eyes starting to sizzle with irritation. If this is too much for you, holding up his hand, Gage stopped her. I got it. A story. He stared at her. Eyebrows lifting, she asked, What's it like being a SEAL? He shrugged. I wouldn't know what it's like not being one. You started young. We all started young. It's not a game for old guys. A game? When you're out on a mission, you tend to look at it as something to be conquered. It's win and losing is not an option. It's also fun. You jump out of airplanes and helicopters, swim in some of the worst ocean currents, you're freezing, you're sweating, and you hike some incredibly dangerous terrain. And when you have time off? He crooked the corner of his mouth. Some of us have been known to go looking for trouble, or trouble finds us. Which brings you here. She started snapping photos. Keep going. You do this alone? Hell no. You're a team. We're a team. She looked up from her camera and asked, And what are they like, your team? Go ahead and move as you talk. You don't have to stand still. He nodded and stayed where he was, arms crossed. Well, my team leader fancies himself a bit of a ladies' man. He's got more ex-whatevers spread across this beautiful country than I have teeth, but he's damn good at his job. Our sniper. Your what? She straightened and frowned. You want to hear this? He asked. She nodded and dove behind the camera again. Go on. He's like the typical redhead, a hothead, except in action he is one cool dude. Anna grabbed the camera and circled around him. Linda, bring in a hat. Gage lifted his eyebrows. A hat? Linda grinned at him and put a straw Stetson on his head. She gave him a wink. From behind her camera, Anna asked in that deep voice of hers, What about you, Lieutenant? Are you a heartbreaker too? Gage pulled down the Stetson to a better angle. My expertise is things that go boom, not something most women like to hear. She pulled the camera down and frowned. Why? He glanced at her from under the brim of the Stetson. Would you want to get that phone call if I screw up and am coming home in pieces? Her frown deepened, but she brought her camera up and snapped more pictures. He couldn't imagine what she must see. He'd learned how to hide just about everything, but he also knew even the best had small tells, little twitches or shadings that gave away what you felt. And he thought about Nick, who had been sent home in a box. Why hadn't Natalie shown up for her new husband's funeral? Anna broke into his thoughts again. So, what's it really like being a SEAL? Do you guys get special treatment? I mean, special forces and all that? He frowned. Did she really want to know? And why was she asking all the questions? He crossed his arms again. Linda dashed over, yanking off the hat, and pushed a sword into his hands. Seriously? He asked her. She shrugged. Anna glanced at him. SEAL? Talking? Come on, Gage, we're cooking now. She gave him a grin that had him wanting to tell her just about anything. Okay, yeah, it's different. Doesn't matter what your rank is. An ensign could be in charge of a team of officers, something that's been known to piss off some of the brass. Okay, there's a story there. Anna motioned to Linda. Swap the sword for a gun. Gage liked that better. A weapon in his hand felt natural. Story? Anna reminded him. It's not much of one. Happened on practice maneuvers. Some admiral had been bragging about his time as a SEAL, and our CO offered him a chance to sit in on one of our runs. Our lowest-ranked SEAL was running our team, and we were one man short. Gage stopped, glanced at the fake gun in his hand. One man short. That's how they were again now. He looked up. We got the admiral, and it was like a wrench in cogs. We were losing, so Nick, our ensign, gets an idea that ends with the admiral covered in sludge that might be hazardous, meaning he gets naked and scrubbed and hosed down fast. He was not a happy admiral, but there was not a damn thing he could do about it. Gage watched for reactions to the mention of Nick's name. He hadn't mentioned anyone else before. He was going to go with neither of these two knowing Nick. They grinned and smiled, just like Nick was still alive. But he wasn't. And Natalie was missing. So how did he drop her name into things? Chapter 2. Anna took a deep breath. Her arms ached from holding the Hasselblad. She really should go digital, but nothing looked as good as the Hasselblad's images. She also still liked developing her own film and scanning the best images into the computer. She put the camera back on its tripod and grabbed 2 bottles of water from the ice chest. Take 5. We're not slave drivers here. He gave a nod and tucked the prop gun away in the back of his jeans like it was a real one he wanted to hang on to. Thanks. These lights really make you sweat. On him. It looked sexy. She grabbed a towel from Linda and tossed it at him. Have a seat. I need to reload my camera. She grabbed the Hasselblad and headed for the dark room to get a new roll in and the first roll developed. She wanted to see how the film was looking. She still couldn't figure out why a Navy SEAL would want to be a cover model, but she wasn't going to complain. Corin was going to be more than happy about the variety of images, and Gage was downright yummy in all the right places. Well over 6 feet, he had no tan lines, a lot of muscle, and a light spray of hair across his chest. A happy trail disappeared under the buttons on his jeans, which had her fantasizing about the pot of gold that she was sure was at the end of the trail. Shaking her head in bemusement, Anna realized that while she had sworn off men, she did not have the best judgment when it came to guys. The sight of a truly delicious one sure set her imagination into high gear. Well, she could look and not touch, but even when they'd shaken hands, she'd felt a nice, warm tingling. He hadn't squeezed her hand too hard or too lightly, but just right. She itched to run her finger down his straight nose and nibble on his firm jaw, but she was not going there with him. He looked military through and through, from the short haircut to the broad chest and muscles and right down the feet planted in military parade rest. She got the film out, a new roll in, and started developing. Gage looked better when he talked. His face lit up. His eyes went from flat and guarded to bright. He was missing one earlobe on his right side, she noticed, and wondered if he had lost it in the line of duty. Well, she could shoot around it in the next session, but she liked the small flaw. It somehow left him more real. Leaving the photos to dry, she headed out with her camera. Gage was sitting in a canvas chair now, and Linda was fussing with him. The sound of loud voices echoed from the hall. The door slammed open and Marcella strode in, dressed in tight leather pants, a fitted vest, and stiletto boots. Anna cringed. Marcella had been hired to be the company's art director. She was good at her job, but she also had more affectation than Lady Gaga, a voice that could cut glass at times, and an artistic temperament. You never knew if you were going to get the happy Marcella, the sulky one, the angry one, or the pouting one. Thankfully, her mood changed as fast as her fashions did. She stepped up to Gage, who stood, and held out her hand with her wrist arched. "And who might you be, lover?" "Lieutenant Gage Jackelson," he answered stiffly. He shook her hand with a hard pump. Marcella's smile faded, but a predatory look came into her eyes. "A lieutenant," she said slowly. "How positively yummy." Anna started to step in to play referee. Several other models had quit because of Marcella's involvement in the photo shoot, but her phone vibrated. She glanced at the face of the phone and saw her mother's number. "Why don't we break for lunch?" Marcella held up her hand. "But I just got here. You go along now, take your call." Gage grabbed his shirt. "Lunch sounds great. See you in an hour." Gage met up with Scotty and Spencer in a bar 2 blocks down the street. He'd hoped they'd show. He glanced at the guys, ordered a beer, and joined them in a booth at the back. Scotty turned from admiring the waitress's backside and lifted his beer. To Nick, "He shall not grow old as we that are left to grow old. Age shall not weary him, nor will the years condemn him. As the sun sets below the horizon and rises up each morning, we will remember him." They clicked mugs. They had been doing the same toast every day since Nick had died. They'd keep doing it until they knew what had happened. Gage glanced at his watch. Where the hell is Kyle? Anyone hear from him yet? Gage was starting to worry about Kyle. Nick hadn't just been a brother in arms to Kyle. He'd been Kyle's flesh and blood brother. It was always hard to lose someone, but Gage couldn't imagine what it must be like to lose your bro. Kyle and Nick had been close, and ever since they'd gotten home, Kyle didn't want to talk about it. He didn't want to talk about anything. He was spending too much time on his own. Spencer glanced around the bar, and Gage followed his stare. It was just about automatic. You went into a place, you looked at the threats and exits. This one was a no-brainer, front door and back. Lots of dark wood, a baseball game playing on the set, the sound turned low and the crowd roaring. The place smelled of cigarettes, even though a no-smoking sign hung next to the mirror behind the bar. Bottles of liquor sparkled in front of the mirror, and a barman rubbed at an already spotless bar and watched the game over his shoulder. A waitress was hanging out with 2 college-age kids at the front. No one else was in the place. No threats, plenty of options for an out, including the frosted glass window next to the door. Spencer turned to Gage and his mouth pulled down. "His phone's off. Going straight to messaging." "I went by his apartment. Not there," Scotty said. He pulled his eyes from the waitress with the tight ass. Shaking his head, Gage stared into his beer. "He blames himself." Spencer straightened. "He should. He was in charge. It was his job to make sure everything went smoothly, not go sideways like that." Scotty held up a hand. "Not helping, Spence. Far as we know, Kyle's tracing that sniper who shouldn't have been there and gonna pay him back for Nick." "Nick and no one else. It was a damn hit," Gage muttered. Spencer slumped and cradled his beer. "What'd you find out about that publishing company? Any sign of Natalie?" Shrugging, Gage thought about telling them the whole story, decided to skip most of it. "I'm going back after lunch. This place have burgers on a menu?" "What do you think?" Spencer asked. "I think food poisoning could be a side," Gage said. "I'm going to need to get closer in there. So far, I've been doing more talking than they have." Scotty gave a laugh. "You?" Gage nodded. He sipped his beer. He talked about the shoot, the people, keeping it to bare facts. "What about you two?" Scotty shook his head. "Word from Commander Brighton is that the team's under investigation. They think the shooting stinks too, but that crap is starting to stick to us." Gage stiffened. "Investigation? So one of us set up Nick to get killed?" Spencer put a hand on Gage's shoulder. "No, they think we killed him. We're dirty somehow. Nick was going to bail, and we snuffed him instead. Looking at it from the outside, I might think the same. Wouldn't be the first time someone got bought." Scotty nodded. "Brighton's got a soft spot for us." "Soft in the head," Gage muttered. Spencer frowned, but Scotty grinned. "Look, given the nature of that last mission, for Nick to have been shot while the rest of the team walk home, someone had to have singled him out." "Yeah, tell us something we don't know," Gage said. "But why? Why? More and more questions. His head hurt. Squaring his shoulders, Gage sat up and put his hands on the table. "How much time do you think we have?" Scotty shrugged. "Not much. Officially, we're on leave. Brighton's running interference for us for now. You know, he's good at making the paperwork thick as a brick. Unofficially, he doesn't want any of us, especially Kyle, to be anywhere where we can be found." Spencer lifted his beer. "Can't be called in for questioning if we can't be found." Turning, Scotty watched the waitress come over, a smile on his lips. Gage was almost ready to punch him. Instead, he ordered a burger. The other guys passed. He got back something that smelt burnt and looked like shoe leather between two buns. He buried it in ketchup, took a bite, and asked, "What about the storage unit?" "You mean the one Nick told us and no one else about?" Spencer shook his head. "Bust. Found his bug-out bag with what any of us would have. Burner phone, never used, clothes, and some cash." Gage nodded. "Better keep your bags close. I got a bad feeling about this one." Spencer nodded. Same damn feeling that started when that last mission came up. Something in this more than stinks. Scotty took a pull on his beer. "Yeah, well, let's make sure the stink doesn't end up tarring us as the bad guys. Gage, you going back to that publishing company? Right now, that's our only link to Natalie, and there's got to be a reason she's disappeared." Gage nodded. He left half his burger uneaten. He had a lump in his stomach and didn't need another one there. "What about you two?" Glancing at the waitress, Scotty said, "I'm going to try to get her number." Gage stared at him, and Scotty pulled out Natalie's photo. "I'm also going to see if Natalie ever came in here. After that, I'll canvass around, see if I can pick up any kind of lead." Suddenly, the photo shoot wasn't looking so bad to Gage. He glanced at Spencer. "You?" Spencer finished his beer. "I'm going to see if we can find out where our damn fearless leader has gone to ground." Now Gage was totally happy to head back to the studio. If Kyle didn't want to be found, Kyle wasn't going to be found. And Gage was just going to hope the wrong person hadn't found Kyle first. For now, he had to go back and pose some more. Chapter 3. "Hello, Mother?" Anna forced her voice to stay even and calm. "Breathe in, breathe out." "You're not a child anymore. You know I prefer Eloise." "Oh, well, it hardly matters since we're not in public. How are you, dear?" "I'm fine, Eloise. I'm also at work. Is there something you need?" In the social circles around Washington, D.C., Eloise Middleton was a force, a queen. Her late husband had been a congressman. He'd been caught having an affair with his secretary, but Eloise had scored points for standing by her man. The scandal had lost Charles Middleton the election, but he'd had strong enough connections by then, favors to be paid back, that he'd landed in the corporate world on both feet. And then a drunk driver had happened along. Anna had adored her father, but she'd chosen to believe her mother had had nothing to do with the accident. However, she knew there were a lot of people who wouldn't put it past Eloise to find payback for her husband's affair. The death had put what had been a chilled relationship between mother and daughter into the freezer. It hadn't stopped Eloise Middleton from continuing to wield her influence with those who could most benefit Eloise's causes. Anna knew herself to be on the list of just about lost causes, but Mother, Eloise, never called in the middle of work unless it was important. Anna dragged her fingers through her hair, pulling loose a few strands from the ponytail. "Eloise, I just called to tell you that your sister Susan is pregnant." "I know. I got the Facebook notification along with about 5,000 other people. And so?" Anna began to pace. "This is something to celebrate. If your little sister can find a man and get pregnant, and, the shower's next month, you'll get an invitation, but I need you to arrange the cake and entertainment. But more importantly, if she can, you can. You are definitely prettier than she is, even if you are stupidly tall." Ouch. Anna forced a smile. "Mother, Eloise, I can't get to D.C. next month." "Of course you can. If you won't tell your boss, put him on the phone and I will explain it. Senator Brown is looking into other publishers who are mixed up in these price-fixing scandals that keep coming out. I am certain your small company would prefer to be overlooked." Small. Closing her eyes, Anna sucked in a breath. Try independent, Mom. But she needed her mother trying to extort her boss about as much as she needed a poke in the side with a stick. "Thanks, Mom. I'll handle it." She clicked off and started back to the studio. She'd grab yogurt from the fridge. At the elevator, she met up with Corin Williams. She waited while he stepped out. He was dressed in his usual, jeans, an open-neck button-front white shirt, and a smile. The loafers were Italian, had to have cost what Anna earned in a month, but this was more of a hobby business for Corin than anything else. She often wondered why he kept the business going. Corin had recently celebrated his 76th birthday. He was rich enough to retire. Despite the casual clothes, he looked more like Montgomery Burns from The Simpsons than a trendy hip guy. Bald, with liver spots and a hooked nose, she was pretty sure handsome was the last description anyone would give him. But he had presence. He flashed her his usual tight smile. "How's the shoot going?" She nodded. "Surprisingly well. We only wanted someone who could look the part. I certainly didn't expect us to land an actual Navy SEAL." He lifted a hand. A gold ring glinted on his little finger. "Long as it's working. Is Marcella happy?" "Is Marcella ever happy for very long?" He nodded. "Good point." "I think she'll be satisfied. And we'll end up with good covers." "Good. I have golf this afternoon. Try not to burn down the place." He flashed another smile and headed for the door. Sometimes she wondered at his sense of humor. She grabbed her yogurt, found Marcella had disappeared into her office, and Linda was sitting on the floor, paper bags and wrapped sandwiches spread out around her. From the aroma, Linda had gone for delivery from the deli down the street. Anna had no trouble trading yogurt for a pastrami on rye that smelled like spicy heaven. The elevator hummed, pinged, and Gage strode back into the studio. Somehow he filled the space. It went from seeming industrial and huge to narrowing in on just him. He scanned the area, eyes narrowed, as if looking for threats, relaxed a little, and asked, "Any of those sandwiches spare?" Anna lifted her eyebrows, but it was Linda who asked, "Didn't you eat?" "I tried a burger down the street." Anna and Linda swapped stares and groans, and Anna said, "The bar? Binky's? Yeah, world's worst. Their fish tacos put 2 construction workers in the hospital." She held up half her pastrami. "I'll share." He sat down next to her. She wasn't sure how a guy with that much bulk could move as gracefully as he did. "Any chance I could get some more water?" He offered up a smile that warmed her like the sun on her face. "Of course." She scrambled to get him another bottle. It was a great excuse for the heat on her face. Once she settled, he asked, "Have you worked here long?" 3 years, Linda answered. Anna smiled. She was happy to let Linda field this one. It wasn't so much that she wasn't sociable, just that she wasn't so hot at dealing with hot guys. Her last pick, well, the less that was thought about that, the better. But Gage turned to her. "You like it here?" Shrugging her shoulders, she said, "It's okay. The shoots are fun, but there's a ton of computer work to get something that Marcella likes." "And she is?" Linda wrinkled her nose. "A pain in the ass." Anna nudged her with an elbow. "The art director. The person we must please." "How did you hear about us?" Linda asked. She licked her yogurt spoon. "We usually get all our models through an agency or referrals." Gage shifted, and Anna had the oddest feeling he was about to duck the question or lie. "Guy I knew. His wife writes romance novels. Maybe you know her. Natalie?" Linda gave a laugh and leaned close. "We're supposed to read what we publish, but, I just work here. Would you believe the guy who runs this is worth $5 billion? $5 billion. If I had that much, I'd be somewhere sipping cocktails with little umbrellas in them. My boyfriend thinks he's into something illegal." "Linda." Anna shook her head. "Well, it's true." Linda dropped her voice lower. "Tom thinks it's drugs, but I think Corin looks more like someone who'd sell guns." Rolling her eyes, Anna gave a laugh. "Yeah, and Tom is not only a total conspiracy nut, he's making you into one too." Gage shrugged. "Hey, it's not paranoia if they're really out to get you." She looked at him and blinked. Oh no, not again. He'd seemed so stable, so normal. But of course, if she was attracted to him, something had to be wrong. Wadding up her sandwich paper, she stood. "Time to get back to work. Linda, don't we have another model coming in so we can get some couple shots?" "Sounds like lunch is over." Linda stood and headed downstairs to find out. Anna picked up her camera, and Marcella joined them. Gage headed for his spot in front of the green screen. "Darling, you have to lose the shirt." She smiled up at him as she began to unbutton it. He took her hands and put them back at her sides. "Thanks. Got it handled." "Whatever." Marcella waved a hand. "But I want to see you making love to the camera." Somehow Anna resisted the urge to roll her eyes over that one. Marcella stepped back, and Anna started shooting. Somehow, Gage seemed more relaxed now. He stared straight into the camera, or was that straight into her? Her heartbeat quickened, and her mouth dried. He was more than a hunk. He looked like one of those sculpted statues, perfection except for that one nicked ear. She heard Marcella give a low hum of pleasure, but the world seemed to become just her and Gage, him staring at her through the camera as if he could see into her soul. She wanted to touch him, to reach out and stroke her fingers over his delts, to trace down over his ribs to that rippling six-pack. She wet her lips, and a sudden fantasy of him in her bed took over. He'd take over, she knew that. He'd strip her bare, and she'd offer herself up to him. She noticed his lips curve into a smile. She looked up at him over the camera and caught his spark of amusement as his blue eyes danced. Busted. Anna felt her face heat. In the next second, an ear-splitting alarm started to screech. Chapter 4. Gage grabbed for his shirt and moved toward Anna. "What's going on?" he demanded. Anna winced. "It's probably just another drill. We have them all the time." "Right. Doesn't sound like a drill to me." He walked over to the nearest phone, picked it up. "Line's dead." He put the phone down. Anna glanced around, frowning. "Drills are only supposed to happen on Mondays." "How would you know?" Marcella demanded. "I'm the company's safety officer, and I'm supposed to receive advance notice of any drills." "Well, I don't smell any smoke." Marcella crossed her arms. "This isn't the smoke alarm," Anna said. "It's for gas or a hazardous spill. You can tell by the number of beats." Gage grabbed her hand. "We need to go. Now." He headed for the stairs, dragging Anna with him. The other two women followed along, Marcella complaining, "Well, if we have to go, let's take the stairs down and go out through the basement. We'll get a coffee next door." Gage glanced at her. "Bad idea. You got anything hazardous here, it's going to be down there in the basement." Anna nodded. "Gage is right. The emergency protocol for a gas leak or possible spill is to go up and wait on the roof for evacuation." Marcella let out a breath. "If there was something leaking, we'd smell it. I'm going down. You coming?" She headed down the stairs. Linda glanced from Anna to Marcella, then darted after her. Gage glanced at Anna. "Come on, let's move." He grabbed her hand, but she pulled back. "Wait. We should use the stairs on the other side. The alarm's supposed to be loudest on the side of the building where the leak's been detected, meaning this side." He strode for the door, taking her with him. She still had her camera in hand. "Do the others know this?" "They would if they attended the safety meetings or read the memos. It's HR's job to make sure." A hard-edged boom echoed, shaking plaster loose from the walls and dropping ceiling panels. Gage grabbed Anna and pulled her into the stairwell doorway. The alarm went dead. So did the lights. Not good, Gage thought. This had gone from possible emergency to a definite problem. Anna coughed. He glanced down at her. Daylight drifted in through the windows, but emergency lights had come on in the stairwell, making it look red as hell. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded. "Good. Come on." He pulled her with him, heading up. On every floor he paused to check the doors, feeling the back of it with his palm. No heat so far. "How many floors?" Gage asked, starting up the next flight. "It's a 30-story building, and we started on the 10th. Anna was still lugging her camera with her. He wanted to pull it from her, but it was her choice to carry it. Gage rounded the next set of stairs. "Tell me about yourself, Anna Middleton." She gave a shaky laugh. "What, like a first date?" "More like you're pale, you're thinking way too much, and nothing beats passing the time like chit-chat. You seeing anyone?" She laughed again, this time with less tremor in the sound. That was good. The last thing he needed was a hysterical woman. "Is that an offer?" He glanced at her. "Just a question. You don't date much, do you?" "It's that obvious." She sounded a touch bitter, and Gage wondered who'd left her that way. He checked his phone. No signal, but they were making good time. "What's the worst thing that ever happened to you?" he asked. "Besides this?" He grinned at her. "This is a nice hike with a nice guy." She pulled a face. She was puffing a little, needed to get more exercise. She shrugged. "I went through a sliding glass door when I was a teen." She pulled back the collar of her shirt, showed a network of fine white lines. "Scars. I don't know how it happened. Someone must have put something in my drink. Next thing I knew, I woke up in the hospital. My mother pulled me out of school and hired a tutor for me. I was homeschooled after that." Gage stiffened as she talked, imagining a young Anna in trouble and hurt. He didn't like the image. "Did they go after whoever did it?" "And prove what? Besides, growing up in D.C., you learn the only good scandal is one that happens to someone else." "Sorry. Didn't mean to stir bad memories." "It's okay. They're better than nothing." "You do that often?" She glanced at him. "What?" "Go for sarcasm." "Why not? It's better than pity." They made it to the 21st floor. Gage glanced at the number painted on the door. Anna was having difficulty breathing. Sweat trickled down the side of her face. She swayed and leaned against a wall. Gage caught her elbow. "You gonna make it?" She nodded. "Shouldn't have skipped that cycling class." He kept hold of her arm as he started up. "Seem odd to you that we haven't run into anyone else?" "It was after lunch. Most of the marketing and editorial are in New York at a conference, meaning their staff's going to be taking late lunches. Some might have thought the same thing as Marcella. It's a drill, so why bother leaving their desks? Do you think the others are all right?" He shook his head. The explosion was on that side of the building. She stopped. Her throat worked. "Oh." The word came out flat and dull. I... Don't worry." She came across as a touch bossy. He glanced at her. "That wasn't what I was going to say." "I know, but if she's injured then I'd hate to be thinking how she's got a voice that could rival the alarm system." Gage smiled and nodded. "Fair enough." On the 25th floor, the security door stood ajar. Gage yanked at the handle, but something had jammed it in place. Reaching for his cell phone, he tapped the flashlight app and stuck his arm through the door to look around. He couldn't find what was holding the door open this crack. Pulling in his arm, he saw that he had a single bar. He started to call Scotty, but just as fast, the bar disappeared. Damn it. Anna called his name and said, "Do you smell smoke?" He did. He grabbed her hand and pulled her up with him. She was gasping now, and he was tempted to swing her up over his shoulder. But he wanted to keep her on her feet as long as he could. He wrapped one arm around her waist. "Don't talk. Take slow breaths. We'll be fine." The place stank of smoke now, and he wished he had a mask. Modern furniture outgassed too many things that weren't good to breathe when they burned. Anna coughed and choked. On the 30th floor, they got the door open. They stumbled through, and Gage paused. The entire floor looked as if it was mostly a reception room and one office. Corin Williams's office, he'd guess. Anna moved to the walnut door that stood open. She gave a gasp, and Gage came over to see what had started her. She was surprised to see the office in disarray. The door lock broken and a hole where it had been. Chairs overturned, a sofa ripped apart, a computer on the floor, files tossed on the floor. Glass windows opened onto a rooftop garden and helicopter pad. Gage picked up the laptop, but Anna put a hand on his arm. "Now isn't the time to clean up." He turned to face her. "Any idea what happened?" Anna shook her head. He heard an engine start. Helio, he knew. Glancing out the glass windows, he saw a chopper rise, turn, and move away. Walking onto the rooftop, Gage looked over the wall. "Looks like emergency response is here." Anna shivered and stepped close. "That helicopter, who was it?" Gage glanced back at the trashed office, thought about the boom that had gone off. He was going to bet the two were connected. But what the hell was going on at this place? He put an arm over her shoulder and settled in to wait. Emergency staff reached them faster than he expected. Good crew, he thought. They had the fire contained, elevators working, and Anna rode down with a mask on her face and oxygen helping her breathe. Gage took the guys up on a mask too. Saved him having to talk too much. On the street, he saw Scotty and Spencer. He shook his head at them. He needed them in reserve right now. Once inside an ambulance, he let the medics check him out. He signed a waiver for non-transport. The last thing he needed was to waste time. Climbing out of the ambulance, he eased over to where Anna sat in another rig, talking to the police. Her answers were vague, even more so than his had been. No, she didn't know what had happened, didn't have any idea. Gage knew that either meant she was innocent or guilty as hell. He saw Marcella in another ambulance sobbing and in hysterics, the medics swapping looks and getting an injection ready, probably because the woman was about to give herself a heart attack. Linda was in another ambulance, and she didn't look so good, strapped down to a gurney. Someone had crushed the Gothic fairy good. Movement caught his eye, and Gage looked over as Anna stepped out of the ambulance. "You good to go?" he asked. She looked at him with wide eyes. Her white blouse was smudged, dark circled her eyes, and her hair was no longer pulled back tight, but hung loose around her face. She looked great. She was alive and breathing, and managed a shaky smile that wasn't all that happy. She waved at the cameras. She still had hers, still in one hand. "I prefer to be on the other side." "You were leaving without saying goodbye?" he asked. "Well, you looked busy." She hugged her camera to her chest. "Distracted." He took her arm. "Not for you, Anna." Never too busy for you. Besides, it's a SEAL tradition. After a mission like that, you gotta go out for steak. So, have dinner with me. Besides, after what just happened, I'm not letting you out of my sight. Chapter 5. Anna waited outside for Gage. In the end, she'd insisted on going home first. She'd wanted to have a bath, a long one. She wanted to think. What the hell had happened today? She hadn't been allowed back in the building. Firefighters and police were still searching. There was apparently considerable smoke damage, and there was also a question of if the building was stable. Words like terrorist bomb had been floating around. Linda and Marcella were both hospitalized, and no one had been able to reach Corin Williams. Anna turned on the tap to put more hot water in the tub. Her legs ached as if she'd run 5 miles, all of it vertical. She was definitely starting back at the gym next week. But why had this happened? Corin Williams published fiction, a tiny bit of nonfiction, and not much more. Was this personal? The more she thought about it, the more she believed it must be. How could this have anything to do with the company? Well, it was the police's problem now. Hers tomorrow if she couldn't get back to work. Did this mean she was out of a job? She couldn't think about that, and for the first time ever, her mother's advice came in handy. When in doubt, put on your best dress and a brave face. She had pulled out a dress that matched her eyes. It came up high in front and low in back, hiding her network of scars. She added diamond stud earrings, black heels, and a black clutch, and painted out the dark circles under her eyes. A touch of Chanel No. 5, and she was ready to go. Would she be allowed into the building tomorrow to get her things? She needed to call the credit card companies and see about new ID. Her head began to pound again. What she needed was some food, a drink, and to not think about it for a few hours. Glancing down the street, she saw a truck pull up, with Gage behind the wheel. He got out and walked around to the passenger side to open the door for her. "You look fantastic." As he slipped behind the wheel, he said, "I know I mentioned steak, but what do you think about the fish market instead?" "I'd like that," she said, and slipped on her seatbelt. The sun was beginning to set when they pulled up in front of the market, which was really 2 small docks in the tidal basin off the Potomac River. It was off the tourist track, but it was popular with locals. An open-air market offered fresh fish, fishermen's platters, or just about anything else you could want. Gage parked the truck and walked with Anna along the dockside. To the west, the sun lit up the sky in stripes of red, orange, and yellow, balancing like a fiery ball on the horizon. Smiling, Anna stepped closer and rested her head on his shoulder. "This is one of my favorite times of the day." He gave a grunt and a nod. Odd that she didn't mind that he wasn't a guy who talked a lot. Or maybe it was just the day they'd been through. The sky darkened, lights coming on in a blaze of color, and Gage headed to Captain White's. "Have you been here before?" he asked. She smiled and nodded. "Used to come here with my grandparents. Grandpa had a boat. I learned to swim in the Potomac, but I haven't been out on the water in years." Gage offered a tight smile. "Glad I thought of it." She frowned at the comment. Had he known she'd been here before? It was almost as if he'd dug up some of her past. The server came to take drink orders. Those appeared, and someone else came for their order. Gage ordered steamed Chesapeake blue crab, blackened catfish, crab cakes, corn pudding, a side of mac and cheese, and 2 strawberry lemonades. Anna stared at him. "Feeding an army?" He smiled. "Trust me, you'll want more." He added a dozen oysters and jumbo shrimp with cocktail sauce to the order. Once he'd paid and picked up the food, he gestured to Anna to grab the drinks. "I know a sweet little spot overlooking the tidal basin." On the way, he grabbed a blanket from his truck. He spread it out on a rise looking out on the water. They dug into the food. Everything was great. The cocktail sauce had a tang, the fish was perfect, flaky and moist, and Anna found herself wishing Gage had ordered more mac and cheese. Leaning back, Gage asked, "Any news about what happened?" She shook her head. "I wish I knew. They're going to let us back in tomorrow, I hope, but I can't figure out why anyone would go after a publishing house. Author files or manuscripts? Some of it's got to be worth something. All our files are kept in a central database that every department has access to. It's just fiction." He frowned. Why would everyone have access to it? She sipped her lemonade and shrugged. "Our author files have everything from contact information to current photos to book sales to manuscript data. If someone in marketing wants to know what other books are similar to a particular title, or production needs to contact the author with questions on the manuscript, it's all there. That doesn't seem very safe. She smiled. Oh, come on. In the world we live in, if someone wants to hack a server, no amount of safeguards will prevent it. But what happened today was, I don't know, old school. Gage coughed into his drink. Old school? She waved a hand. Who tears apart an office looking for something when it would be far easier to hack a computer? Unless whatever they wanted wasn't on the server. Does your boss have a safe? Keep stuff there? She shrugged. If he does, it isn't at the office. I would have known about it. It'll be at his bank or home. It's not like he lacks for assets or resources. Gage gave a nod, and an odd hum she couldn't read. Did that mean he didn't believe her? He gathered up the debris of the meal, stood, and reached a hand down to her. Care for a walk on the waterfront? Her muscles had stiffened up over dinner, and she was glad to stretch them. Oh my, look, a carnival! The noise, lights, and tents had been set up near the waterfront. Anna dragged Gage into the music and crowd. She spotted a sharpshooter game. Glancing at Gage, she gave him a smile. Come on, win me something. He gave her a sideways look and shrugged. At the tent, she pulled out a $5 bill and handed it to the attendant. Picking up the gun, he sighted and shot. 5 more shots, and he set the gun down. The attendant pushed a stuffed rabbit at Gage, which he handed to Anna. Anna rubbed the rabbit's ears. No one's ever won a prize for me. He glanced at her, his expression unreadable. She grabbed his hand. Look, hand-dipped ice cream. My treat. Aren't you stuffed yet? Hey, I burned a lot of calories today, she told him, and pulled him toward the vendor. Anna ordered 2 cones. Gage amended that to 1, telling her, we'll share. He left her juggling rabbit and cone, but he kept his hand on the small of her back. They wandered the carnival. It smelled like cotton candy and childhood, Anna thought. And it was getting late. The booths were starting to close, the lights were shutting down, the music clicked off. Gage steered her toward where he'd parked the truck. She slowed her pace. Looking down at her, he asked, something wrong? She heard the tension in his voice and knew he'd gone on alert. Smiling, she shook her head. No, not at all. It's just that I had such a great time. I can't believe. This day has been so weird. At the car, next to Gage's truck, a little girl stood rubbing tears from her eyes, staring up at a man who had to be her dad. Melissa, I'm sorry we got here too late. Anna didn't hear what else her father had to say. She glanced at her rabbit and bent down. Excuse me, Melissa? This rabbit just happened to jump into my arms over there. He said he was looking for a little girl named Melissa. Would that be you? Melissa's eyes widened. She glanced at her dad and back at Anna. I'm Melissa. How did the rabbit know? She asked in awe. He's a very smart rabbit, but he needs a good home. Think you can give him one? The girl nodded, curls bobbing. Taking the rabbit, she hugged it to her. Her dad nudged her. What do you say, Melissa? Thank you, she murmured, her mouth pressed to the rabbit. Anna watched father and daughter get into the car. She still missed her dad so much. She turned to find Gage watching her, eyes narrowed, his mouth set in a line. What? She asked. It's not like I had room at home for it. Are you mad at me for giving away your prize? He shook his head and put his hand on the small of her back again. You did a good thing, Anna Middleton. And now I think I'd better take you home. You look dead on your feet. She frowned. Don't say things like that, Gage. Death's not something to joke about. He shrugged. You either joke about it or it beats you down. I'm going to opt for the former. Chapter 6. Gage was working up a sweat on the punching bag. He had been unable to get the information he wanted, he hadn't so much as gotten a goodnight kiss from Anna, and now he had his face on the news. Not good when he'd been told to stay out of sight. He'd left his cell phone at home after Special Investigations had left a message asking him to return to the base for questioning. He'd also grabbed a bag and had checked into a hotel, and now he was taking advantage of their exercise room. It was a good one. He'd tried to see Anna later, after she finished looking over the wreckage of her office. Anna. The only good thing to come from all this. Maybe. He still didn't know how she was involved in any of this, only that she was a woman who gave away a prize won for her to a little girl who needed it more than she did. Spinning around, he delivered a series of roundhouse kicks that left him gasping for breath. He still had no lead on Natalie, and he sure as hell didn't need investigators breathing down his neck over what had happened at Corin Williams Publishing. It was time for a new strategy. That meant he needed Anna, but he didn't want her thinking that was the only reason why he wanted to see her, especially after the dinner they'd had together. He was about to start another round on the punching bag, but a towel wrapped around his neck. Grabbing it, he turned around. Scotty wagged a six-pack at him. "Take a break?" Nodding, Gage wiped the sweat off his neck and face. They headed out of the exercise room and took the elevator up to Gage's room. He'd booked into the Jefferson, more for the discreet service than the luxury. Settling on the balcony, Scotty pulled out 2 beers and handed one to Gage. Twisting the cap off, he took a long draw. It felt good on his sore throat, leftovers from yesterday. Finishing the bottle, he popped it back into the carrier and reached for a second. "Hey, slow down," Scotty cautioned, "and tell me, how was your date?" "Fine." "Fine." Scotty lifted an eyebrow. The man liked to share and expected everyone else to do the same. Women to him were just another notch on his belt, and Gage couldn't wait for the day Scotty met a woman who'd give him more grief than Scotty had ever given any female. Gage shrugged. Good. Normal. He didn't want to talk about Anna. He didn't want her to be mixed up in anything bad. She was a good kid, or that was his take on her. He liked how, when she smiled, her eyes would light up and her nose would crinkle. But he was having a hard time trying to figure out just what the hell was going on at her company. Who'd set that explosion, and why? And why trash Williams's office? There was something rotten about that company, and Gage was afraid Anna was mixed up in it big time. Scotty sipped his beer and asked, "What? You cranky from not getting any?" "She's not like that." Scotty shrugged. "She's female, meaning trouble on 2 legs. You ought to know that, my man. Did you happen to bring up the fact that we're looking for Nick's widow, who we suspect was an author at her publishing house?" I asked. Natalie's name didn't ring any bells. Scotty frowned. "Spencer and I didn't find anything either. It's like Natalie never existed, which is damn suspicious. Either she's a pro at covering her tracks, or she never did exist. She was a cover for someone." Gage leaned forward, resting his elbows on his thighs. "Spencer have any luck getting his ex to see if there's a file on her with NSA?" Scotty gave a laugh. "That one? The ex wasn't particularly cooperative. Evidently, Spence and his wife didn't part on the best of terms. So what's next? Kyle's still MIA. We're going to be AWOL soon, and we've got Zip to show for our troubles." He sank back in his chair. "This is not going well." Gage dropped his empty beer bottle into the carton. "That's your trouble, Scotty. You're not playing the long game. Something bad is going down at that publishing company. The place wouldn't have been on fire and trashed otherwise." Scotty glanced at him. "You sure that whole thing was staged?" Gage nodded. "Not only staged, but I'd say whoever pulled it off was a pro. That helio waiting was just on time. The whole thing had the feel of a first-class op pulled off to an exact timetable." Frowning, Scotty asked, "You hear anything on what caused the explosion?" "No, not likely to, unless we can work some connections with local PD. Since we're officially not supposed to be reachable, that's going to be hard." Looking out over the balcony, Scotty said, "I hate to say it, but the damn thing sounds like a military op. What does a CEO of a publishing house have that's so important that someone would be willing to kill for it?" He glanced at Gage. "You going to use Anna to get us more intel?" Gage pressed his lips tight. Then he nodded. "I'm going to use whoever I need to. We're going to find out who killed Nick and why, if I have to rip that publishing company apart myself." Chapter 7. In other news, there is still no word on the whereabouts of billionaire Corin Williams. An early adopter of new technology, Williams made his money in the defense industry before retiring to found a successful publishing house. Tragedy struck the Williams family 3 years ago when his son struck another motorist while driving drunk, killing both of them, and again yesterday when a fire broke out in Williams's DC-based publishing company. 5 people were hospitalized with injuries, but officials have not yet determined the cause of the fire, and no one has been able to reach Mr. Williams for comment. Anna sipped a glass of Chardonnay and stared at the television screen. She couldn't believe that there was still no news on the whereabouts of Corin. How could he have simply disappeared like that? He was supposed to have gone golfing yesterday. How did anyone vanish from a golf course? The police had been reluctant to allow her back into the offices this morning, but they had needed an accounting of what might be missing. As far as Anna could tell, nothing had been taken, but whoever had been there had sure made a mess of things. The company's files were digitized with an offsite backup, with the exception of some of Corin's notes, which he still insisted on writing out longhand in notebooks. The company could keep doing business. They just had to condense office space. Anna always wondered why Corin was so resistant to using technology when he'd made his money on innovation. She spent most of the day packing up her office. She was going to have to move downstairs. In just a couple of years, she had managed to accumulate more stuff than she knew what to do with. She liked to keep hard copies of all her photos, and then there were the books. She relocated down to the 6th floor. Accounting had to make room for her, and half of marketing. Setting up in a corner space that needed better light, she put out her musical carousel, a relic from her mother's earlier life, on the corner of her desk. Anna had rescued the carousel from her mom's last move. It had been an anniversary gift from Anna's father. Each time she looked at it, Anna was reminded of happier times, but those were all long, long ago. She'd also downloaded the latest books from the marketing department onto her tablet. She liked to read the early copies to get cover ideas for the shoots, and she'd heard 2 new books had just come in yesterday morning. Now, back in her apartment, she stared at the television, which was showing footage of the explosion and fire from yesterday. Anna rubbed absently at her cheek. It could have been her in the hospital. She'd heard from Linda, and she was due for release in a day or 2, but everyone in the basement had had more than a close brush with death. The smoke in the lower parts of the building had been worse, and there'd been chemicals in the air. She startled when her cat jumped up onto the kitchen counter. "Oh, no, you don't, Romeo." She grabbed the fluffy gray cat and put him back down on the floor. After feeding him, she flicked off the news and curled up on the couch. She was looking forward to a quiet evening, and she had books to read. Oddly, there were 3 new files on her tablet. She could have sworn she'd only put 2 on here this morning, but maybe someone had sent her an extra file yesterday. Corin often sent her files, or simply installed files if he had a book he wasn't sure about buying. She was happy to be an early reader, and she liked it that he sometimes trusted her judgment. A couple of times, she'd even found new books sent to her by Linda. Those were always something the marketing department had passed on, and how Linda got the files Anna wasn't asking. But Linda knew Anna's tastes and grabbed her odd books she thought Anna might like. Anna opened the first file, Lavender Lily, by N.T. Smalls. She didn't recognize the author's name, and half a page later, she knew why. She went back over the text again to see if maybe she was missing something. "It is a cold November day that takes me to the haunted mansion, but I am not ready for the gunman waiting, nor for the mysterious package that comes from Florida. I wait with my love, Nick, for word, but none comes, so I let myself wander." Anna blinked. Either she was more tired than she knew, or this book was a mess. How could the marketing department even think of releasing this? Well, maybe it was one of the ones they'd passed on, but Anna was sure she'd read something else by Smalls. Or had she? She flicked forward a few pages. "Everything is wrong. Danger everywhere. I shout, but no one can hear me. They are all too deep in his pockets. The cat warns me of trouble, but I have to find Nick. Or maybe all I will find will be his ghost, and I will be one too, for he is forever gone to the green and red." Okay, maybe this is some trendy style I'm not up on, Anna muttered. She closed the file and wondered if she should try another book or find a movie. Her phone rang, saving her from having to make a choice. She hoped it wasn't her mother again. Eloise had probably seen her on the news, and would no doubt tell her the camera had added 10 pounds to her, and probably talk about how bad her hair had looked on the news. Reaching for her phone, Anna checked the caller ID and smiled. It was Gage. Feeling more like a teenager, she answered, "Hey, Gage, didn't expect to hear from you so soon." She hadn't. Her dating record wasn't exactly the best, but it was nice that he'd called. His deep voice came over the line. "Thought I would call to see how you were doing." Smiling, Anna sat down and tucked her feet underneath her. "No ill effects other than incredibly sore legs. That, and I'm now in a closet of an office at work. Apparently it's going to take weeks to put everything back to what it was. Oh, that reminds me. We're going to have to do another shoot with you. I have the images from the film in my camera, but everything else ended up smoke or water damaged. A short silence came over the line, and then he said, "Another shoot?" He didn't sound happy, and she asked, "What, don't tell me you're already resigning as model material? That'd be a loss to the modeling world. Besides, I'm getting ideas for using you as a mystery man on the cover of what seems to be a gothic something." She nudged her tablet with a finger. She'd have to try reading that book another time, sometime when she wasn't exhausted. She snuggled lower in her seat. On a different note, Gage said, "I had a wonderful time with you the other night. Is it too soon to call to see if you would like to go out again? I still want dinner with you." She twirled a strand of hair around her fingers. "I'd love to." "Great. We're on for tonight." She gave a laugh. "You really don't waste time. It's sweet of you, but I am now planning a microwave dinner and an early night." "How about pizza and beer? I know a place over on Peace Street. Does Neapolitan-style pie, Pizzeria Paradiso, gobs of cheese, tomatoes, and garlic. And if you're up for it, a salty fish roe that'll make your day and night. They do take out." She grinned and wondered if she should say yes. From the corner of her eye, she saw Romeo jump up on the windowsill. He sat still, only the tip of his tail moving, a low growl coming from his throat. Gage kept talking about the pizza and the beer, trying to talk her into dinner. Getting up, Anna moved to the window. She pulled back the curtain. Evening was falling, leaving the sky a smeared, dusky purple with stars faint and flickering. The streetlights had not yet come on, so gloom hung close to the buildings. This was a residential street, apartments and condos. She thought she saw someone standing across the street, half hidden by shadows. The dark form moved and vanished. Anna shivered. She let the curtain fall, but Romeo stayed alert, growling low in his throat. Turning from the window, Anna wondered if she should say yes to Gage. Company seemed a good idea right now. "Gage, I'm sorry, but after that hot bath I had, I really was planning on a quiet evening." She walked around her apartment, turning on lights. That shadow outside had spooked her, and, okay, the weird writing wasn't helping with its talk about ghosts. Maybe Lavender Lily was an odd story, but it was effective at making you feel uneasy. "How about a rain check until tomorrow?" His voice thickened with disappointment. "Well, if you're sure. I'll just have to force myself to eat alone." She grinned. What a horrible fate. "Thanks for calling, Gage." She hung up and headed into the kitchen to see what she had. Romeo followed her and wound around her ankles, protesting that he was starving too. She opened another can of tuna cat food for him, considered the canned soup for herself, and almost called Gage back. Pizza was starting to sound better and better. Her phone rang, and she answered without checking the number. Maybe she should give in to his pleading. "Hello?" Nothing came over the line. She said hello twice more, checked that her phone had a connection. It did. And she could hear someone breathing, nothing more. Uneasy, she hung up and hugged herself. Okay, that was weird. First a shadow outside her place, then a call. She shook her head. She was tired, that was all, and hungry. Suddenly she wanted company. She wanted people around her, and bright lights and noise. She thought about calling Gage back, but really she didn't know him all that well, and she didn't want to seem, needy, or a little unhinged. Grabbing her coat and keys, she headed for the door, calling out to Romeo, "Keep the lights on for me." She headed downstairs to the parking garage, which was locked and secured. She waved at the guard as she exited and turned out the avenue in front of her apartment. Eloise kept a house in Georgetown, a fine old federal house exquisitely furnished with antiques. Anna had opted for a modern apartment with clean lines, cleaner furniture, and just her photos on the walls for decoration. She was glad of that now as she headed for her favorite haunt, the Queen Vic, only 5 blocks away. She lived not far from the H Street corridor, an area in transition with some hip clubs, some old buildings, and some spots that needed renovation. But the Queen Vic would have noise, people, and, best of all, solid comfort food. She lived close enough she could have walked, but she'd walked enough yesterday for a week. Half a block later, her car sputtered and began to slow down. The steering dragged. She managed to pull the car over before the engine simply stopped. She was still on her own street, but it was the time of day when everyone was either home in front of the TV or out to dinner. No one seemed to be on the streets. Getting out of the car, Anna glanced around. Well, better alone than with just one stranger. She lifted the hood to look underneath. While the engine was hot, she couldn't tell what was wrong. She kept her Ginny in great shape and had just had a tune-up 2 weeks ago. It was getting dark now, the lights coming on overhead, making it harder to see, and she didn't have a flashlight. She turned her cell phone on to light. Squinting, she reached out to pick up a piece of rubber and looked at it. Looking around, she found more small pieces. Had a belt gone out? Looking down at her car, she straightened and hoped this was a simple fix. She loved her old Mercedes wagon. It had been her father's when he'd been in college, and he'd managed to keep it well maintained. When he'd won his seat in Congress, the car, Ginny, she'd been named, had been retired to the garage in favor of something bigger. Ginny had become Anna's on her 16th birthday, and she'd tried to be just as good as her dad about keeping it in perfect condition. She started to wonder if she should call someone, a tow truck maybe, when a man's voice came out at the dark. Need help? She spun, heart racing. The guy stood on the sidewalk, a hat pulled low. One of those hipster hats, she thought. You saw enough of them on some neighborhoods in D.C., and she let out a breath. He seemed big, imposing, but he wasn't holding a gun or knife. He was well dressed. The jeans looked new, and the dark coat looked like it was wool. It stopped. She waved a hand at her car. And I don't have a clue what to do about it. The guy moved closer. For some reason, Anna's heart kept pounding. She wasn't usually this wary around strangers, but maybe it was the dark, or his size, or the weird book she'd glanced at. But she backed away. The street seemed unusually empty, the lights dim as the day faded into the twilight that smeared everything into gray. No other pedestrians strolled past. Anna tightened her grip on her phone and grabbed a breath. Car lights flashed over her. She turned to look up the street. The car pulled up and the window rolled down. Anna caught a whiff of garlic, and Gage smiled up at her. Problems? Chapter 8. Gage had been intending to show up, whether Anna wanted him to or not. Pizza and beer in hand would do the explaining. He wasn't taking no for an answer about spending time with Anna. The last place he expected to see her was by the side of the road. She came over to him, waved at the sidewalk. This nice man was just going to help me. Glancing at the empty sideway, Gage lifted his eyebrows. Nice man. Anna spun. She turned back to him and pushed a hand into her hair. He was this guy. He just came up. Gage nodded. The hair was standing up on the back of his neck, and he didn't like any of this. A car breaks down. A guy shows up. Sounded like a setup to him. He forced a smile. Why don't I take you home? Before we go, you can call a tow truck to get you to a mechanic. If you need it, I know a guy not far from here who's good. She bit her lower lip and nodded. Gage thought she looked pale and shaky, meaning she was either lying about this, or there really had been someone who had spooked her. That would be great. Walking back to her car, she ducked into it and came out with her purse. She locked her car, glanced up and down the street. She seemed nervous to Gage. Coming around, she climbed into his Honda. He could swear she gave a small shiver. But that might be the evening air. She had on a baggy button-front shirt in a pale color, loose jeans, and flat shoes of some kind. She didn't look dressed for a night on the town. Were you going out for groceries? He asked. She grimaced and shook her head. After you called, well, I suddenly wanted company. Not just mine? He asked, and slanted a glance at her. Her cheeks reddened. I didn't want to. I hate to have to be rescued. He glanced at her. Well, I hate to eat alone. I was coming over to beg my way into your place. Looks like it was a good thing I did. Pulling out his phone, he called his own auto club. They promised a tow truck would be there within a few minutes, and they lived up to the promise. Stay put, he told Anna, and got out to handle the towing. Once they got the address for Anna's mechanic sorted out, the tow company promised to keep Anna's car overnight and get it to the mechanic first thing. No sense leaving your car on the street all night, Gage said as he got back into his car. Biting her lower lip, Anna shook her head. You're being so nice about this. He smiled. Only so you'll have dinner with me. Now, where's your place? She gave him directions. 5 minutes later, she pointed to her apartment building. In here, there's guest parking, so you can pull into one of those spots, or take my space. Do you think my Ginny will be okay? Ginny. He looked at her and blinked. She smiled at him. My car, it's short for Virginia. Turning, she waved to the guard. She's not on the streets, but I hate leaving her anywhere. The gate to the parking area slid back, and Gage drove inside. It'll be fine. I've used this service before. And how old is that clunker? Don't make fun of her. She's given me good service, and, well, my dad named the car. It used to be his. Gage nodded. He had damn few things from his own father, and from how her voice softened, he was going to go with her having good memories of her dad. He'd dug into her background, her father's death, how he'd been a member of Congress. Her mother still seemed to be a social force in D.C., but for someone from that kind of background, Anna was remarkably casual. Pulling into one of the visitor spots, Gage parked. He shut off the engine and glanced at her. In the dim lights, she looked pale and nervous, still, her hair a nimbus around her face. He wanted to reach out, touch her cheek, smooth away that tight line between her eyebrows. But that wasn't what he was here for. He needed information that she might not even know she had. You going to invite me up? She blinked at him. Oh yes, please. She got out and headed to the elevator bank. Bringing the pizza and a 6-pack of Miller with him, he followed her to the elevator. He nodded. Good. No stairs. She gave a small groan. No stairs for a month, but I swore to myself I'm going to get back to the gym. She punched the elevator button. They rode up in silence to her floor. She fumbled with her keys, and he watched her. She'd seemed so poised yesterday with a camera in her hands. It seemed that you took the camera away, and she didn't know what to do. Was that camera her shield, a way to keep herself distant from the world? Getting her front door open, she called out, Romeo, I'm home. Where art thou? Gage walked into her place, eyebrows lifted high and glancing around. Romeo? 10 seconds later, a gray cat stalked in and sat down, facing Gage. The cat had to be 20 pounds. Large green eyes fixed on Gage, and Gage gave the cat back the same assessing stare. Seeming to decide Gage was okay, Romeo started to wash a paw. Nice cat, Gage said. Don't let the act fool you. Romeo likes attention on his own terms. You might not want to try to pet him. He's pretty handy with his claws. Oh, no trouble with that. He wasn't a cat person. Gage glanced around. He liked what he saw. Comfortable black leather couch, big screen TV on one wall, a lot of books in ceiling-high bookcases, a few pillows in bright colors. The hardwood floors had been left bare, and pale wood offered a nice warmth compared with the off-white walls. He glanced at a couple of photographs on the wall, black and white ones, framed with thin black frames. Not the usual shots of famous D.C. landmarks, but these were all of people, with the landmarks lurked blurry in the background, almost like dream images. A lawyer sat on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. A little girl stared down into the reflecting pool in front of the Washington Monument. An old woman fed pigeons near the Jefferson Monument. The people were the stars of the photos. Their emotions seemed caught in the images, their expressions ones of struggle, of people who endured. Gage gestured to the photographs. Yours? Anna nodded and headed into the open kitchen. A countertop separated the kitchen from the living room, and Gage didn't see a dining room, so he followed her. She blushed again. Over the question, he wondered. Was she shy about her work? Was that why she had the photos here in her apartment and not in some gallery? She turned to pull out plates and cutlery. He stared at her. Are you serious? Pizza's meant to be eaten with the hands. She gave him a smile. You'd shock my mother down to the soles of her designer shoes. Where the heck did you grow up? She put a plate in front of him. He put down the pizza and the beer and slid onto a stool at the counter. He'd always found it easier to get intel if you started off by sharing, so he told her. A little town in Kentucky called Winchester, right along the Tennessee border near the Daniel Boone National Forest. My dad liked to rebuild cars. He had a shop attached to the house, so my brothers and I learned how to work on cars at an early age. We also learned to eat pizza the way it's meant to be eaten, with your hands. Anna opened the cardboard box and pulled in a breath. That smells like heaven. A cat suddenly appeared on the counter. Anna swept up Romeo and deposited him back on the floor, telling him, "You had your dinner, Buster, twice over." Gage opened a beer and handed it to Anna. "What about you?" She put it down without taking a sip and started dishing out pizza onto the plates. He could see he was going to have a hard time convincing her of the using fingers thing. "Virginia to start. I was born in Richmond, but we moved to D.C. after my dad joined Congress. And we just, stayed. It's my mother's playground, so to speak. She loves all that behind-the-scenes negotiating." "The woman behind the politician?" Gage asked. His stomach growled. He hadn't eaten all day, and that pizza did smell great. Anna put out forks and knives. "She was the one who pushed Dad into it. I think he would have preferred to remain a college professor." Ignoring the silverware, Gage picked up a slice of pizza. Warm cheese dripped onto his fingers. "College professor. What did he teach?" "English Lit," Anna replied. She cut into her pizza with her knife and fork and popped a small piece into her mouth. "Don't tell me," Gage said. "You majored in English, too." He waved at the bookshelves. "No wonder you work for a publisher. You have family around?" She nodded. "My mother, Eloise," she wrinkled her nose, "and a sister, Pauline. My dad, he passed early." "Eloise?" "Not the Eloise Middleton." She glanced at him. "You read the society pages?" He didn't, but Anna didn't have to know that. He'd gotten the name from reading up on Anna's background. "Sure, when I'm bored enough. But who hasn't heard of that dame?" She grinned. Mom would have a fit to hear herself called that. She insisted that Pauline and I should call her by her first name, like she didn't want anyone to know she was old enough to actually have daughters. She still manages to look like she's in her 40s, but it was something my father never understood. Or me, for that matter. She comes from old money, and she never lets anyone forget that either. "That's why the old car, the new apartment?" He waved at her sparse digs. "You doing everything the opposite of Mom?" She grinned. "Oh, I love old things. But I like them to be useful." Gage leaned his elbows on the counter. "Speaking of old, I saw a photo of your boss on TV. What's with him going missing? You think he's trying to skip out on all the trouble from yesterday?" Anna sipped her beer and shrugged. "I wish I knew. Corin's not the most reliable at the best of times. He hates sharing his schedule, and since he owns the company outright, it's not like he has to be accountable to anyone." "What do you do when he takes off like this?" Gage offered a smile. "Does that mean you get to take time off work?" Anna smiled. "I wish. It'll take the rest of the week to sort out offices, but it'll be business as usual on Monday. We have deadlines we can't miss, meaning I need to set up another shoot for you." She headed into the living room and came back with her tablet. Standing next to Gage, she put her tablet on the counter, pulled up a calendar, and asked, "How's next Wednesday?" Gage reached out with his thumb to rub at the side of her face. She didn't pull back. "Tomato sauce," he said, and licked his thumb. "Tastes better on you." She blushed, and he reached up to stroke the side of her face. She didn't pull back, and her pupils blew wide and dark. Leaning closer, he cupped her chin and brushed his lips across hers. She tasted like garlic and tomatoes and beer. All of it was good. Parting her lips, she let him deepen the kiss. She had soft lips. He let his hand trail down her back, wrapped his arm around her waist, and pulled her closer. She fit herself to him. Pulling back, he smiled. "I've been wanting to do that since I met you," he confessed. Her cheeks reddened. He touched a fingertip to her face. "I love that you blush like that." "Curse of fair skin," she said. "Gage?" She didn't finish the question, so he asked, "Moving too fast?" She shook her head. He stroked his hand down her arm. She made him feel more alive than he'd felt in a long time, but he couldn't lose sight of the mission. His job was to stay close to her. Pulling away, she grabbed another beer for him and for herself. "Let's take this into the living room. But remember, I have to be up early for work. That reminds me, are you on leave or something?" "Yeah, something. Downtime." Gage picked up his beer and followed her into the living room. Out of habit, he stopped by the window and glanced out. It was ingrained now to scope out his surroundings. You didn't walk into a room without checking the exits and the occupants. You stayed aware. He glimpsed a shadow moving below in the street. Could be someone out for the evening air, but he didn't like that the shadow seemed to be hanging around more than walking somewhere. Maybe it was nothing, but suddenly he didn't want to leave Anna alone. She'd said some guy had stopped to help her, but the guy had faded away. That didn't sound right. All of this smacked of trouble, and if he left her, well, he wasn't going to see her end up like Nick. Dropping the curtain, he headed over to the couch and sat next to her. "You need a ride to work in the morning?" She shook her head and sipped her beer. She hadn't moved away from him, and that was good. She smelled good, too, spicy and floury, with that touch of garlic and beer clinging to her from the meal. Smells of home, Gage thought. They were both comforting, and not all that familiar to him. "I can call a friend tomorrow for a ride once I know Ginny's at the mechanics. I want to make sure she's in good hands." He put his beer down and put his hands on her waist. "How about you being in some good hands?" She opened her mouth to answer, so he swooped in, kissed her hard. He caught her breath, and her tongue sucked on it. She gave a moan. She brought up her hands and wrapped her arms around him. Taking her up on the invitation, he slipped one hand under her shirt. She was even better than anything in any of his fantasies. He let the kiss linger, wrapped her up in his arms. Her skin heated when he stroked his hands over her. He heard a thud of a shoe coming off, one of hers. The other ones joined it. Pulling back, he stared down at her. He touched a hand to the buttons on her shirt, but she put her hand over his. "Leave it on." He lifted his eyebrows, but she simply grabbed his t-shirt and pulled up on the hem. "This, however, can come off." Sitting up, he tugged it off. She ran her fingertips over his chest. Pausing, her hand stilled, and her fingers splayed wide on him as if she was taking up ownership. She looked straight at him. "The one thing these last couple of days have taught me is that I don't want to reach the end of my life and have any regrets." He smiled. "Life flashed before your eyes?" "Something like that." She stood, unbuttoned her jeans, and let them drop. Gage let his stare travel over her legs. She had great legs, long and lean and perfect. Looking up at her, he licked his lips and asked, "And what is it would you regret not doing?" "This."
Sorry, readers. Here's where we fade to black due to YouTube explicit content guidelines. If you dream for the steam, you'll need to take a look in the book.
Would she ask him to leave? He hoped not. He really hoped not. He was in no shape to go anywhere. Anna sprawled on the couch, looking deliciously rumpled and sexy as hell, her shirt up around her hips and her face still rosy from sex. She smiled at him. "I do have a bed, you know." He held out a hand. "Lead the way." Chapter 9. Deciding to be bold, Anna stood, took his hand, and pulled him into her bedroom. She turned on the lamp on her side table. Naked was a good look for on him. He pulled down the covers and got in bed. She headed back to lock up and turn off the lights. At the last minute, she brought the beer into the bedroom in case he wanted any. He lay face down on the bed, short hair sticking up a little, the sheets barely covering his ass. His breathing had deepened, and she was going for him already being asleep. One lean foot stuck out from the covers, exposing a well-muscled calf. Her fingers itched for her camera. She bit her lower lip. Butterflies in her stomach began to dance madly. With a grin, she decided, why not? She'd show him the photos before she did anything with them, and she wouldn't take anything that could compromise him by identifying him. Slipping into her closet, she pulled out her Canon. It was digital. It would do everything automatically, or she could change the settings if she chose. She already had a lens on for close shots, so she just started shooting. In the light, his skin looked almost golden. She took a shot of just his back, the sculpted lines, the curve, the muscles, just the hint of his ass under the covers. Moving, she took a shot of his foot. She loved feet. His were like his hands, long, narrow, tapering. She moved closer and caught a whiff of his scent, something warm and faintly smelling of the ocean. Closing her eyes, she remembered him with his arms around her on the couch. She shivered. That was a good memory. A hand snaked out, caught her wrist. Her eyes popped open, and Gage dragged her into the bed. He rolled with her, and she ended up caught in his arms. He stared at her, eyebrows lifted, and she smiled back. "Want to see? If I was artistic enough, I'd paint you, but I'll have to settle for photos." "Naked pictures?" he asked, as his voice deepened. "Didn't know you were that kinky." She trailed her fingers over his chest. "You look good naked." He pulled the camera out of her hands and put it on the nightstand. "I look better with you wrapped around me." She turned in his arms, wiggled up and out, and straddled his lap. Giving him her best seductive smile, she leaned in to kiss him. Groaning, he wrapped his arms tightly around her. He pulled at her shirt. "This needs to come off." She put her hands over his. I have scars." "Yeah, who doesn't?" He pointed to a puckered set of lines low on his hip. "Appendix out. Didn't help that a knife went in there next." Tugging at her shirt, he lifted the hem and slid his hands up underneath. "Off. Now, please." Slowly she unbuttoned her shirt, her insides dancing. She got it open, revealed the lines of white scars. Gage pulled her down and started kissing each one. He palmed her breasts and her nipples, strained against her bra, begging for his touch. She heard her bra snap open. She slipped it off and pressed her chest against his. He was all heat, fire under his skin and in his touch. Rubbing her cheek against his, she snaked her tongue out to lick his earlobe before nibbling on it. There was so much she wanted to do and feel. She wanted more of him, all of him. She worked her hands down his body, stroking, exploring. She managed to slide one hand between them to stroke his erection. With a groan, he pulled Anna against him. He grabbed her ponytail and held her captive against an onslaught of kisses. Panting, she pulled away and sat up. She trailed a hand over his chest, then put his fingers on her chest. "What do they feel like? My skin. What do the scars feel like to you? I mean, I touch them all the time and I don't know. Are they weird?" Taking her hand, he brought it to his right ear. "What does that feel like?" Shifting her position, she touched his earlobe. "It's textured and soft." Wrapping his arms around her, he rolled to his side. He kept one arm around her and lifted one leg over his hips. Lightly, he traced the cobweb of scars across the top of her chest. They remind me of a board game I played as a kid. I don't remember what it was called, but the board itself was textured to depict different terrains. Leaning down, he licked at the scars. Anna gasped. They feel the same on my tongue as they do on my finger." "Now these," he continued as he shifted his finger over to the top of her breasts. "They're incredibly soft to the touch, and the skin is so smooth."
Sorry, readers. Here's where we fade to black due to YouTube explicit content guidelines. If you dream for the steam, you'll need to take a look in the book.
Gage rolled off her and pulled her into his arms. "I think I need more data before I can really tell you what your scars feel like." She huffed out a breath. "Well, anything for science." She started to slip out of bed, but Gage grabbed her wrist. She glanced at him. "Relax. Just headed to the bathroom. You're staying, right?" He nodded and let go. She slid out of bed. She wobbled into the bathroom on legs that felt like wet noodles. She cleaned up. He hadn't used a condom that second time, but she was on the pill. She brushed her teeth and her hair, her nightly tradition. Heading back to the bedroom, she found Gage sprawled out again. She crawled back under the covers and touched a hand to his face. Dark eyelashes, touched by a hint of gold, brushed his high cheekbones. She traced his eyebrow. He didn't open his eyes, but he grabbed her hand, turning it and pressing a kiss into her palm. She could feel the stubble on his chin. "What are you thinking about?" he asked, his voice thick with sleep. She wiggled closer to him, close enough that his scent wrapped around her. "That I don't know if this was such a great idea." He smiled. "Oh, as ideas go, this rate's a 10, maybe an 11. His eyes opened a fraction, and she caught a flash of silver. "We're not picking out China yet, you know, and I don't plan to vanish out of your life. I'm thinking dinner out a few times. A little more talking, maybe. A lot more of this, I hope." Anna ran a hand over his hair. Short as it was surprisingly soft. "I know a place that has great homemade desserts, and my favorite pub is just down the street. Hey, do you like Chinese?" His mouth curved. "For the near future, wherever you want to go is good by me." Anna frowned. What an odd thing to say. But she was already half asleep herself. She reached out and flicked the light off. She was under no illusions about Gage. He was a SEAL, meaning he and his team were sent off at a moment's notice to places they never talked about. They did things they couldn't talk about, too. His life was entirely different from hers. But for a short time, well, she liked him. She liked him in her bed. It wasn't like her to just jump into bed with a guy, but Gage, well, he was something special. She knew that. The only question was just how long she'd have him in her life. Chapter 10. Gage woke early. He left Anna sleeping. He checked out the front window, but didn't see anyone hanging around. A jogger ran past, a guy was walking his dog, a few cars were parked on the street, but they could belong to residents. It all looked normal. So why did he have that tingling along the back of his neck? He showered and dressed and wandered into her kitchen. He found the stuff to make coffee and got a pot boiling. He heard the shower going, Anna, and the temptation to join her rose in him. That wasn't the only thing rising. However, he had to focus. Last night had been a great excuse to stay with her, but he was starting to wonder if he'd let things go too far. He wasn't much on entanglements. He liked girls, but he also liked the ones who were in it just for fun. Anna was the type of girl you could get way too serious about way too fast. Pouring himself some coffee, he wandered around her apartment and looked at her photographs. They were all black and white, and he found himself pulled into the images, wondering about the people in them. She was too damn good at getting under the surface, at showing more than anyone should see. He caught wonder on a kid's face, the delight of an old woman as she bit into a candy bar. Anna was an optimist. He looked at the photos, and he didn't see someone who was mixed up in anything shady. So why had the place where she worked been targeted? Why had her car broken down last night? Why had someone been outside her place? Morning. Gage turned and smiled. Anna stood in the doorway to her bedroom and bathroom, her hair pulled back again, a light sweater in a blue that matched her eyes, topped jeans and boots. She didn't wear much makeup. Didn't need it, Gage thought. Those eyes sparkled no matter what, those bright, intense eyes. He lifted his coffee mug. Hope you don't mind. Coffee made for me? Never. And I've got some bagels in the freezer. He followed her over to the counter. Freezer. How about cold pizza? Breakfast of champions, she said, and grinned. They'd left the pizza box out, and Anna peered inside. Or maybe not. From the tomato sauce paw print, it looks like Romeo got the last slice. How about eggs? I do a mean veggie omelet, even if the mushrooms are canned. He agreed to it and sat down. Anything to stay with her. He asked if she'd called about her car. She had. It was going to take all day to repair what seemed to be a broken belt. Anna frowned. Which is weird, because Ginny just went in for a tune-up 2 weeks ago and they checked everything. I mean, I know the snow and the salted roads are hard on cars, but Ginny's always been reliable. Gage didn't think it was odd. Belts were the easiest way to disable a car when you wanted it to start but not go far. A few cuts, the car would start, would get out of a parking garage, and would stop on the street. It was something he'd have done, which made him wonder just about how easy it was to get access to that parking garage. He sipped his coffee and said, maybe she's showing her age. Anna slipped a plate in front of him. It smelled great. Mushrooms, spinach, and tomatoes slipped out of the omelet. Gage dug in. Around a mouthful, he told her, okay, you can do breakfast any time. She smiled and waved a fork. The least I can do to thank you for everything. He sat up. Hey, last night. Totally my pleasure, but I don't want it to just be one night. How about dinner tonight? Or lunch? Or breakfast tomorrow, my treat? She shook her head. You really don't waste time. His smile fell. Hard to tell how much time any of us have. What do you say? She smiled and shook her head. How about tomorrow? I'm contemplating a soak in the bathtub and a night of reading. Finishing up his omelet, he sat back with his coffee. How about I come over and scrub your back? She took the plates to the sink, rinsed them, and slipped them into the dishwasher. Coming back to him, she tipped her head to the side. Okay, dinner. I should be off about 5. Pick me up at the office and we'll set a new date for another shoot. How's that for a deal? Now, you need to scoot, and so do I, or I'm going to be late for work. Standing, he stretched across the counter and brushed his lips across hers. See you tonight for dinner. Sure you don't want me to give you a ride? She shook her head. I've leaned enough on you already. She smiled and walked to the door. He stopped there to kiss her cheek. She turned her head so his lips found hers. The kiss deepened, and Gage slipped an arm around her waist. Letting out a breath, Anna stepped back. Go, now, while I still have a brain. She held the door open for him. He gave her a smile and stepped outside. He'd wait for her out front. He'd already picked out a good spot where he could park and follow her. And maybe he could find out who the hell else was after Anna. Anna hit her speed dial and begged Lisa for a ride. She'd known Lisa since the 4th grade. Eloise might have gone to private boarding schools, but Anna and Susan were daughters of the People's Congressman and went to school with regular folk. Lisa and Anna bonded over a shared hatred of math and the certainty that they'd been born in the wrong era. Lisa still looked more like a 60s hippie, right down to the flowing skirts and long hair. "It's called boho chic now," she insisted. Lisa's black VW, classic vintage 63, was waiting for Anna when she hurried out of her building. Lisa leaned over and hugged her. She had on bangle earrings today and bracelets that clattered. Since she'd been waitressing and had started working in an upscale boutique that specialized in second-hand designer clothing, her boho look had taken on a more expensive air. "Thanks. I know this is out of your way," Anna said. Putting the car in gear, Lisa checked over her shoulder and pulled out. "Not a problem. But what happened to Ginny?" Anna filled her in on Ginny's breakdown. Lisa's eyebrows lifted high. "A Navy SEAL rescued you? Some girls get all the luck. What does he look like? All military muscle? Is he cute? Did he stay the night?" Anna could feel her face warming. Lisa glanced over and grinned. "Oh, he so did. You look about 5 shades of red." Ducking her head, Anna tried to busy herself arranging her purse. She'd thrown her tablet into the giant bag. Now she tucked it more firmly into a side pocket. Lisa nudged her with an elbow. "Tell me more. Come on, spill. And does he have a friend? What about you and that guy you met? Scotty, the one you texted me about?" Pulling a face, Lisa shrugged. She let out a sigh. "Just not meant to be, I guess. I mean, I knew when I was working in a pub I was going to get hit on. And the one time I break my rule about never saying yes, well, that's what I get for taking a guy home. I should have known he'd disappear the next morning. He was military too." She let out another long breath. Anna twisted the strap on her bag. Would Gage be like that? She glanced at Lisa, who grinned back. "That's what I get for not even bothering to get his phone number. And here we are. You have time for lunch this week? You should come by the store. We got in the cutest bunch of sweaters, all in your colors. But enough about clothes. What about the guy? Where did you meet? At the rescue? Oh, that'd be too romantic." Anna shook her head. "Gage signed on to do some modeling." "Get out. Now you're getting hunky SEALs? I always figured you'd end up with nothing but pretty boys who are so not men. Have you had sex yet?" Anna frowned at her. "Why don't you focus on the road and leave my love life out of it?" "Love, is it? And I can do both. Did Romeo like the guy?" Anna shrugged. "Romeo ate our pizza, and so far Gage still has all his fingers attached." Pausing, Anna turned to look at her friend. "What if this does turn out to be like you and the guy you met?" Lisa shrugged. "So what? Are you looking for a ring on your finger and a forever after?" Anna shrugged. "I don't know. Maybe I was once, but, well, I just don't know anymore." "Well, don't sit on your hands while you wait." Lisa found a parking spot down the block from Anna's building. She turned in her seat and fixed a stare on Anna. "You want to know why I broke my own rule? Why I went out with that guy I met in a bar even though I knew it was a bad idea?" Anna shook her head, and Lisa went on, her voice intense. "He'd been at the pub, drinking to the loss of a friend, a guy who'd been killed. He told me the guy was just shot for what seemed to be no damn good reason. Dead, just like that. This friend of his left a wife behind. He talked about life being too short to leave things undone, and you know what? He was right." Anna shook her head again. "Gage said something like that." Grabbing Anna's hand, Lisa squeezed it tight. "Well, good. Means he's not completely stupid. Life happens. I read someplace how you can use your heart before it gets broken. So go out and break a few things. Just not our lunch date, okay?" They made a date to meet up at a local coffee shop. But by noon, Anna had to call and cancel. Work was more than swamped. The move and the new cramped quarters had left everyone on edge. Tempers soared. No one could find the right art for the latest covers. 2 editors still preferred to work in hard copies, and the printout galleries had gone missing. Entire boxes of files seemed to be gone, and everyone's nerves were frayed. Anna tried to stay in her own tiny cubicle, but she had to go up to the studio to see what she could rescue from yesterday's work. The answer was nothing. What smoke hadn't damaged had been ruined by overhead sprinklers. She was glad she'd taken her Hasselblad with her when she'd gone, or it would have been soaked too. She called down to the hospital for news and found out that Linda had been released to go home. She called there and left a message. Marcella had been released too, but had checked herself into nursing care. Anna read between the lines on that and figured Marcella would be at the best spa in town for at least a week. Trying to escape the chaos downstairs, Anna volunteered to help sort out Corin's office. The elevators were working again, so she took it up and stepped out and headed into Corin's office. The place was a total wreck. Scattered papers, furniture still overturned. Anna shook her head and started to sort out the worst of it. By the middle of the afternoon, she was exhausted, and she remembered she was supposed to go out with Gage. She wondered if she could call him and put it off, but then she thought about Lisa and the guy she'd met. Maybe Gage would think she was cooling things between them, and she thought about what Lisa had said. It was past time that life stopped happening around her and only to other people. Damn it, she wasn't just going to go out with Gage, she was going to go all out. Grabbing her purse, Anna headed outside to hail a taxi. It was only 4. She'd go home, grab a bath, change into something sexy, and meet up with Gage back at the office building. Smiling and thinking about the evening ahead, maybe she could talk him into taking her dancing, she headed into her building. She rode the elevator up, humming a song. The song stopped as soon as she opened her door. It had been locked, but someone had been in her place. Someone had trashed her place. It looked worse than Corin's office. Her face numb and hands shaking, she took a step back, and then she thought about Romeo. Pulling out her phone, she started to dial the emergency number, but she stopped. Was this an emergency? Should she just call the police instead? What if the person was still there? Where was Romeo? Before she could decide, a hand closed over her hand and her phone. Chapter 11. Gage put a finger to his lips so she'd stay quiet. He took Anna's phone from her hand. She turned and stared at him, her face pale and her hands shaking. He'd been following her all day. He didn't know why she'd left work early since she was supposed to meet him after she got off for dinner. But now he wished he'd left Spencer or Scotty watching her place. Whatever someone had wanted from Corin Williams, they hadn't found it yesterday, and they'd pegged Anna as the person who did have it, probably because she'd been at Williams' office yesterday. He was going to bet this was about to escalate. He bet right. 2 men stepped out of Anna's bedroom. Burly guys. They hadn't bothered with ski masks, meaning they didn't figure on meeting up with anyone. They also wouldn't be leaving anyone alive to identify them. One pulled a gun, and Gage moved forward. They wouldn't expect that. Gage grabbed a lamp on the way, swung hard and fast, and caught the guy with the gun across the face. The gun went off, but Gage was still moving forward. The second guy was also going for a weapon now, so Gage took him down with a round kick to the side of his head and 2 hard punches, one to the throat and one to the temple. Whoever these 2 were, they weren't top-of-the-line pros, just hired thugs, Gage would guess. The guy lay on the floor, rolling in pain. He heard Anna give a small cry, saw the first guy had headed for her, was trying to wrestle Anna's purse from her. She gave slightly, put the guy off balance, and kicked him hard in the groin. Good for you, Gage thought. The guy doubled over. Striding over to her, Gage grabbed Anna's hand. Time to go before reinforcements show. You think there will be more? She hung back, but Gage dragged her with him out into the hallway. He punched the call button for the elevator, and when it showed, he started it down on its own. No sense walking into anything by doing the expected. He headed to the stairs. I think these 2 are hired muscle, meaning brains will be around somewhere. I also think whatever they think you have is worth killing for. He pulled her with him into the stairwell. Their steps echoed on the metal treads. She wrenched away. Just who the hell are you? Have you been following me? What is this all about? He grabbed her wrist again. We'll do 20 questions later. Right now we need to move. She pulled against him, but he had a good grip on her now. I'm not going anywhere with you, not until I know what's going on. He could hear the fear in her voice, but she was trying to put a brave front on it. He glanced at her and told her, Bad stuff, Anna. It's all bad. I'm not leaving Romeo with those robbers. She grabbed the stairway banister and hung on. That stopped him. Gage let out a breath and pulled out a burner phone. Fine. He dialed 911. Hello, yes. I want to report shots fired at the apartment next to mine. I'm in 612 and it was next door. I don't know. I think it's a robbery. Yeah, I'll wait. He started down again, and Anna went with him. Reaching the lobby, he pulled open the door, stepped in, and glanced around. The lobby had potted plants and a fish tank. Gage tossed the phone into the tank and kept pulling Anna with him. There. Cops will be here in no time, meaning we need to be gone. They'll look after Romeo, but if that cat's got any sense, he's hiding and going to stay hidden. He stepped out the front door. He heard a hiss. Next to him, something cracked off the brick of the building. Grabbing Anna, he pulled her back inside. She stared at him, eyes wide. What was sniper fire, trying to keep us here? Her face paled even more, making the freckles across her nose stand out. Sniper? Someone's trying to kill me? Or you? No, we'd be dead already if that was the case. They had a clear shot and used it to push us back inside. He pulled out another phone. Anna slanted him a look, but he called the emergency number they'd set up when his ride had begun. Scotty answered. Need some help, Gage said. He gave a fast sit rep. Scotty's voice came over the line, all business now, none of the usual humor in his tone. Hang tight. Kyle just showed his face, so we're on our way over. Is there a back door? Gage glanced at Anna. She bit her lower lip and then nodded. Gage spoke into the phone again. Yeah, but my bet is it'll be covered too. We're going to have a small window to move. Give us 10. Make it 5. I hear sirens. Gage tucked the phone away and pulled Anna over to a corner of the lobby. He took her shoulders in his hands and made her face him. I'll explain later, but right now my focus is on saving my ass, your skin, and whatever the hell someone wants from you. Do you trust me? She lifted her chin. I barely know you. Yeah, but that's not what I asked. She stared at him, eyes wide still and scared. He saw her throat work as she swallowed. What do we do? We need the cops to ignore us, and they're going to be a distraction for us. Just follow my lead, and if I say run, you run like you've got the hounds of hell on your heels. She nodded. The scream of sirens grew louder. Gage ruffled Anna's hair, pulled his shirt out of his jeans so half of it seemed rumpled, then pulled Anna into his arms and kissed her. For a second, he lost track of the world. She parted her lips and let him dive into her, and the world faded. Then the front doors burst open. Gage had no problem looking startled or acting like he didn't welcome the interruption. One of the cops fixed him with a glare. You call about shots fired? Gage put on a blank face. He swayed a little, as if he'd been up all night. What? Shots? The cop's partner batted his arm and nodded to the elevator. The two left them. Gage grabbed Anna's hand and headed for the back exit. Opening the door set off another alarm, but Gage wanted noise and confusion just now. Cops were showing up in back two, and Gage waved at the lobby. 2 other guys in blue just headed upstairs. What's going on? Did someone get shot? They said there were shots? Damn it, I thought this was a safe neighborhood. What's going on? One of the uniformed officers stepped out of his car. Something wasn't right. Gage didn't know what was wrong, but the tingling on the back of his neck said he'd seen something that didn't fit. The 2 cops swapped a look, and one of them was going for his gun. And that's when it hit Gage. One of the cops had a hint of a tattoo peeking out from under the collar of his uniform, and no cop could have a visible tat and still be on the force. Gage moved fast, but the cop moved faster, drew his weapon. Gage caught the guy's arm, pushed aside, and he yelled at Anna, "Run!" She turned instead, tried to hit one of the cops over the head with her purse. The other fake cop ducked, grabbed her, and slapped a cloth over her face. Vision misting with red, Gage lunged for her, but something came down on his head, hard. He fell with a grunt, tried to push up. He saw Anna go limp, saw her scooped up and shoved into the back of the squad car. One of the fake cops lifted his weapon, and Gage stared down the black hole of a .45. The squeal of tires interrupted. The guy looked up, and that gave Gage an opening. He grabbed the guy's weapon and hand and pulled. The fake cop tumbled forward, and Gage rolled with him, wrapped an arm around the guy's throat, and kept choking. He heard the squeal of tires, glanced up to see the cop car taking off, taking Anna with it. He tightened his chokehold. The man gasped for breath, but failed. And then Scotty was there, pulling at Gage's arm, telling him they needed the guy. We need intel, man. You want your girl back, then we need him. That got through to Gage. He loosened his hold. Scotty and Spencer had zip ties ready, stuffed a rag in the guy's mouth. Kyle was driving a town car with room enough in the trunk for a body. The fake cop went into the trunk. Scotty scooped up Anna's purse, and Spencer reached out a hand to Gage. Time to go. Come on. We've got your bug-out bag with us. Sore and shaking inside, Gage glanced after the car that had taken Anna. Damn it, he'd promised her he'd look after her. We'll get her back, Spencer said. Gage took his hand and stood. Damn right we will. Chapter 12. Her head hurt. A lot. Taking slow breaths, Anna tried to bring her hand to her head, but something was preventing her from moving. A wave of nausea hit, and the stink of burning oil was making it worse. What is going on? Willing herself not to panic, she blinked her eyes and dragged them open and stared at darkness. Something hard bounced against her side. She tried to shift and could barely move. The something bounced against her again, and she realized it was a tire. She was tied up in the trunk of a car. She gave a scream and kicked out. Her struggles tightened whatever was around her legs and hands. Her feet started to go numb. Closing her eyes, she fought to take deep breaths through her mouth. Now was not a good time to be sick. She shifted around. Think. She had to think. Curled up into a ball, she at least had her hands in front of her. Something was digging into her right hip, and she remembered putting her phone into her pocket. Moving her hands to the side, she pulled it out. She was going to hope it hadn't been damaged. She hit a button, and the display came up, but no bars. Damn it. She took another breath and choked. Okay, no signal for calls. Maybe she could get a text out. She had no idea if 911 answered texts, so she tried for Gage. In trunk of car. Please help. She waited for the phone to show the text had gone through. It hadn't, and asked if she wanted to send the text as soon as there was a signal. Cursing, she texted again. Car slowing. Need you to find me. Follow. She sent the text and tucked the phone into the corner of the trunk. Maybe Gage would find her, but would he find her in time? The car rocked to a stop, and the trunk popped open. Daylight blinded her. She gave a groan, and hands reached and dragged her out. Stiff and bruised, she stumbled. Whoever was pulling her didn't care. She was led into a large house. It was red-bricked with large wooden window frames. The shift from sunlight to darkness left her disoriented. Her stomach knotted, and she was sure she was going to throw up. She gave a moan. I'm going to be sick. The guy who was dragging her pulled her into a bedroom and dumped her onto a bare mattress on the floor. At least it was soft. Wait, Anna called out. Don't leave me here. The guy obviously didn't care. He slammed the door shut, and she heard the click of a lock. She tried to remember the class she'd taken in self-defense and safety. What were you supposed to do? Her mind was still numb, and she was shaking. It was cold, she realized. She curled up in a corner and looked around. How long had she been unconscious? She didn't think they could have gone far, but she wasn't sure. She didn't even know why she'd been brought here. She could hear voices in the other room, two men arguing, something about how she had to know, how Corin had to have passed it to her. Great, what was it? Could she pretend to know more than she did? Or should she play dumb? That wouldn't be hard. But if they decided she knew nothing, would they simply kill her and dump her body in the nearest ditch? How had she ever gotten mixed up in this? She wasn't sure, but she knew her chances of survival depended on her finding out as much as she could as soon as possible. Kyle pulled up outside an old hunting cabin. He'd said it belonged to a friend of his uncle. From the back seat, crowded in with their gear bags, Gage glanced at the place. A sagging porch and missing shingles off the roof said this place had seen better days. However, it had one thing going for it. No neighbors for at least 10 miles. Getting out, he headed for the trunk, but Spencer beat him there. Spencer put a hand on Gage's arm. Leave this to me and Scotty. The way you look, you put a hand on a guy, you'll kill him. Gage stepped back. He wanted to take the guy apart. Wanted it in the worst way. But Spencer was right. They needed intel. He headed to the back of the car to grab their bags. He needed a weapon in hand. Grabbing the fake cop by the arms, Spencer and Scotty hauled him into the cabin. Gage followed Kyle inside. The door wasn't locked, and Gage could see why. A single, rough room served as bedroom, kitchen, and living room. No one would want a plaid couch sitting in front of the stone fireplace. 2 chairs, both of them with the paint peeling, stood in front of a kitchen table that looked as if it had to weigh 1,000 pounds. It had been made of a tree stump, sanded and varnished, and now dusty. The fridge looked as if it had been around in the 1940s, and a dusty, mounted deer's head looked down on them from near the peaked roof. Spencer dumped the fake cop on the floor and dusted his hands. Wow, love what you've done with the place. He nudged the pile of newspapers and empty beer cans that had been left on the floor. The maid is off this week, Kyle said, He grabbed one arm of the fake cop. "Someone want to give me a hand?" Scotty grabbed the guy's other arm. They put him into one of the kitchen chairs. Scotty pulled out more zip ties and tied the guy's ankles to the chair legs. Spencer headed over to the fireplace, glanced up the chimney, then headed outside, presumably to find some wood, Gage thought. Gage stood in front of the fake cop, feet planted wide and arms crossed. "What now?" Scotty asked. He tilted his head. "Do we try playing nice first?" Reaching for the gag, Kyle pulled it off. "Got a name?" he asked. The fake cop glared at them. Gage smiled and pulled up the other kitchen chair. "Okay, buddy, here's how it goes. You can talk to us, and then we can take you back into town and let the cops deal with you. Or we can start cutting off parts and keep going until you start talking. Now, me personally, I'm all for getting down to business. That girl you took, Anna, she's a nice girl. She knows squat, which means your pals are not going to be happy to keep her around. This makes me very, very upset." Gage kept his tone even, his voice flat, but he let a fraction of the frustration and anger bubbling inside him show. The fake cop's face paled. He glanced from one to another. "I don't know anything. I was just paid to do a job." Scotty shook his head. "Word of advice, pal. You don't mess with my friend when he's in a mood." Coming over, Kyle pushed up the man's sleeve. "Look at this, guys. That's a Navy tattoo the boy's got on his skin. Where'd you get this, son?" The guy shook his head. Kyle started going through the man's pockets. He pulled out a phone. One number showed up on a recent dial. "Who would answer if I called this?" Gage asked. The fake cop shook his head. "I have rights." "We aren't the law, asshole. Here, you have no rights," Gage answered. The guy shook his head again. "You have no idea who you're dealing with, man." Spencer came in with an armful of wood. He left it near the fireplace and asked, "Any luck?" Gage stood. Guy's military. Ex-Navy is my guess. Spooked and in over his head. The kid nodded. "If you knew what kind of shit you're in, you would be too." "Oh, I doubt that." Kyle shook his head. Licking his lips, the fake cop glanced from Gage to Kyle. "You think I don't know who you are? You're SEAL Team 12. Seems you've had some bad luck lately. What, with one of your own getting shot?" "What do you know about that?" Kyle demanded. His voice had gone dangerously low. "More than you, asshole. Instead of going to your own brother's funeral, you've been holed up drinking yourself stupid. Way to represent. You smell like booze." Kyle raised his arm to strike him, but Gage stopped him. "Don't get distracted," he told him quietly. Shaking his head, Kyle stormed out of the cabin. Scotty followed him out. Gage smiled at the fake cop. "Okay, you know who we are. That means you know we always complete our mission. At this point, I don't care if we finish it over your dead body or not." He smiled, stood, and nodded to Spencer. "Start a fire. We're going to toast him before we start cutting." Spencer nodded and moved to the fire. The fake cop cringed. Gage continued to stare at him. "Who is paying your bills?" "That's above my pay grade." Gage shook his head. "You don't think I know a lie when I hear it?" He headed over to the kitchen counter, rummaged through the drawers, found a knife, and slammed the blade into the wood table, making the fake cop jump. He swallowed. Gage started cutting fabric, buttons first, seams next, then skin. The kid gave a scream and started babbling. "Where's Anna heading?" The kid turned pale. "Look, I was just told. We were taking her out to the woods. An old farm on the West Virginia border. Been there since before the Civil War. Place was used to hide runaway slaves." Gage shook his head. The fire started crackling, and Spencer straightened. Gage sat down in front of the fake cop. "I need a name," Gage said solemnly. "I can't. That's all I can tell you." The kid started shaking his head. "You ever seen anyone burned?" Gage said. "I'm talking bad burns. Not much anyone can do for you. Morphine doesn't even touch it. Never heals right, not even with skin grafts." The kid wet his lips. He'd peed his pants and the stink of urine had bloomed in the cabin. He nodded. "Yeah, I know. I seen a guy. Guy burned all over. I swear I don't know his name. He's just this mean dude. Said he was with the SEAL Team 4. Spencer stepped away from the fire. "Everyone died on that team." The kid shook his head. "Sometimes I wish they had. This guy, he looks like he died and not all of him came back." Gage leaned closer, touched the blade to the fake cop's arm. "What does he want with Anna?" "It's not her. She's leverage." Her boss, Williams, the dude wants something from that old guy. We grabbed him, but Williams swears he passed the file to her. That's all I know. I swear it. That's it. Now he's going to kill me. Gage straightened. No, now you're going to take us to this house. His phone beeped with a message. Gage ignored it. He was out to find Anna. That was all that mattered right now. Chapter 13. No windows, one door, and Anna was hungry. She had no idea how long she'd been here. It seemed like hours. Would her phone still be working? She didn't know, but she was starting to lose hope. Her head hurt, her stomach was knotted, and she needed to pee. Looking around the dimly lit room, she wondered if she should ask for the bathroom, but she didn't want them back in here. Alone, she was at least safe, for now. She inspected the ties around her wrists again. They were tight, but her fingers hadn't gone numb. Shifting to her butt, she wiggled her legs, trying to get the circulation back in her feet. The door opened, and she froze. The fake cop came in. He changed into jeans and a black t-shirt, but she recognized his face. Dark hair cut short, a lot of muscle, dark eyes. He pulled out a knife, and she shrank back. He cut the ties on her wrists and ankles and motioned for her to stand. She did so, wobbling on still half-numb feet. Taking her arm, he pulled her with him. He pushed her into a bathroom. You have 2 minutes. She tried to close the door, but he blocked it with a foot. You now have 1 minute and 50 seconds. Heading to the toilet, she used it. She washed, splashed water on her face, and drank from the faucet. The water tasted brackish, but it was cold and wet. There wasn't a towel, and bars shadowed the windows. She glanced around for anything she could use as a weapon, break the mirror and use the glass maybe? But the guy pushed open the door and waved for her to come out. He grabbed her arm. She thought about pulling away, but why bother? Why not let them think she was defeated? Passive. She needed to save her strength. He put her back in the room and locked it. She sank down on the mattress again. It smelled stale, but that was all. It didn't have any stains on it, thank heavens. She hugged herself and tried to figure out what came next. Her wrists stung from where the plastic had cut into her skin. Her feet were better. Her jeans had protected her skin, and feeling had come back into her feet now the plastic bands were gone. She wiped her face. The urge to give in to tears was strong. She hoped Romeo was doing better than she was. Realizing that she was getting nowhere sitting here and feeling sorry for herself, she stood up on shaky legs and walked around the room. It took 2 laps around the room for her to figure out that there wasn't even a loose floorboard. She began another lap around the room, this time trying to feel for a hidden door or mechanism. There was no way out. Crawling to the mattress, Anna curled back up into a ball. Exhaustion overtook her, and she tumbled into a nightmare-filled sleep. She woke shivering. Sitting up, she saw a box on the floor near the door. She got up and walked over to it. She saw what appeared to be military rations, bottled water, and a woolen blanket. She threw the blanket around her, then dragged the box back to her mattress and sat down. It seemed like a lot of food, several packets of pre-made food, enough for a few days if she was careful with it. That wasn't good. She didn't want to be here for days, or even hours, but she was hungry. Her stomach growled. She chose something labeled tuna, opened it, and found crackers and some kind of pasta dish that might have bits of tuna inside. The food and water left her feeling better. She was now ready to kick Gage's ass for getting her mixed up in this. But what the hell was this? Heading back to the door, she leaned against it. She could hear voices on the other side. Oddly, one of them sounded like Corin. Was he here? She pressed her ear tight against the door. I already told you where to look for it. Yes, that sounded like Corin. Pissy, but also tired. Another voice answered, so low she couldn't hear it, but Corin's voice rose with impatience. Stop deluding yourself, Bex. You and I both know the truth. And the truth is 16 should have died that day. The voices dropped, and Anna strained to hear, pressing her ear against the cold, hard wood. Who was Bex? Why was Corin Williams here? Corin's voice lifted again, pissy and whining now. How else could you have survived? You ran, didn't you? She heard a scream and jumped away from the door. She backed up until the wall stopped her. The door opened. A man came in. He glanced at the box and then at Anna. His face had the glossy look of someone who had been in a terrible fire. He'd lost eyebrows and eyelashes, and the skin that wasn't glossy and smooth was puckered and scarred. "Sit down, Miss Middleton," he ordered. Anna sank down onto her mattress. "Are you Bex?" The man crossed his arms. Even if he'd been in a fire, it hadn't incapacitated him. She could see taut muscles under his black sweatshirt. "I'm looking for a file that your boss gave you." "A file?" She shook her head. "That would be on my work computer, then." He uncrossed his arms and waved a hand dismissively. "No, it wasn't. And it wasn't at your house. Where did you hide it?" She bit her lower lip. If she told this guy she didn't know, would he just kill her? Torture her? She didn't know what to answer. "Does your boyfriend have it?" he asked. She blinked. "My boyfriend? I don't have a boyfriend." The corner of his mouth lifted. It was the mockery of a smile, and she realized the rest of his face must be paralyzed. "Lieutenant Jackelson." She blinked again. "Gage? He's just a friend. Look, what does any of this have to do with me or Gage? My work files will be at the office." He came over to her and crouched down in front of her. She tried to lean back, but he trapped her. Putting his hands on her shoulders, he held her. He pulled down her shirt, exposing her scars. Breath trapped in her chest, Anna sat frozen, too terrified to move. "Glass?" he asked, as he traced a finger along her scars. She swallowed and nodded. He nodded too. "You know what pain is like." He touched a finger to his cheek. "I do too. It's funny how pain changes us, makes us harder, less able to remember what anything else feels like. The world narrows to just the pain, just how bad it can be. But did you know you can forget it?" He put his hand on her scars again. "You just have to make others hurt more than you do." Breathing heavily, she tried to turn away. He pulled his touch from her and stood. She grabbed her shirt and held it together over herself. He bent down again. "Make this easy for us both, please. Where's the file Corin Williams gave you? I am quite certain by now that Williams isn't lying about giving you that file, which means you have what I need. That puts you in a very bad situation. Now where is the file?" Shaking, Anna whispered, "I don't know." He let her go and stood. "I'll give you a little time to think about it. Not much, just enough that you can figure out where it is before I come back. Because next time, I won't be so kind." He walked out of the room and shut the door. Anna curled into a tight ball. "File? What file?" The only files Corin ever gave her were the books to read. The books. She thought about the extra book that had been on her tablet, the book that hadn't read like it was anything other than aimless wandering. Was that the file this guy wanted? Had Corin Williams pulled her into this by downloading that book onto her tablet? Here she'd been blaming Gage, thinking somehow this was connected with him, but he'd been trying to look out for her. Instead, her own boss had pulled her into this. But what now? Should she tell this guy about the file on her tablet? How did that help? She'd lost her tablet along with her purse back in the alley outside her building. What if she told them that she could take them to it? Would they believe her? She'd always been a terrible liar, but maybe she could make this story stick. Or maybe they'd just kill her. Pulling the blanket closer around her shoulders, she tried to think it was a good sign that they'd given her food. She also tried to hang on to the idea that Gage was coming for her. "Think we should call Commander Brighton?" Scotty asked. He was in the back with Spencer. Gage was up front with Kyle driving. They'd left their fake cop in the trunk. Gage pulled out his phone. They were following the directions the fake cop had given them, but it was taking way too long. He wanted to be there now. He kept thinking about Anna. She hadn't asked for this, hadn't trained for it, and didn't deserve it. "And say what?" he asked. He knew he sounded tense and clipped. He tried to even out his tone and his temper. "We've got a fake cop who is also ex-Navy in the trunk of our car, and we're chasing a ghost who kidnapped a girl." Kyle gave a snort. "Brighton would have to turn us all in. No, leave him out of it. But what's the chance that someone did survive that mess in Borneo? Bex, maybe?" Spencer shook his head. "Hey, we've all come out of stuff folks thought should have killed us. But maybe it's someone in Beck's family out to make up for his death." Why pull Anna into that? And what's the connection to her boss and his company? Gage frowned. "I don't like any of this." He pulled up his messages and frowned at two of them. "Guys, I think Anna got a message out." A couple of thumps from the trunk interrupted. Gage ignored them. He showed his phone to Spencer and then to Scotty. Kyle was driving. Spencer shook his head. What the hell does she mean follow? Like on Facebook? Tracking her phone's GPS? What are we, spies? Scotty was already pulling out his smartphone. He nudged Spencer's arm. Dope. Yeah, like Facebook. There's an app that tracks you. We just have to follow her, meaning friend her and see where it shows her. Turning around in the passenger seat, Spencer stared at Scotty. Since when did you get to be so smart? My mama didn't raise no idiot, Scotty said, and some of us pay attention to tech. Damn it, my battery's low. Anyone got a charger? Gage gestured to Anna's purse, sitting neglected in the back seat. Try Anna's tablet instead. You should be able to get a Wi-Fi connection somewhere. We're not that far out of town yet. You can also log into her Facebook. Turning it on, Scotty swiped across the screen as the homepage came up. It's asking for a password. Try Romeo, Gage told him. It's the name of her cat. That worked. And man, this girl reads. Books, books, books. Scotty shook his head. He got a connection and pulled up Facebook. She also needs some better security. She left everything logged in. Not all of us are paranoid, Kyle muttered. Yeah, well, that got her kidnapped too. So far not seeing. Here it is. Bingo, got it. And we're on track. I've got an address. Last known spot for her. Hell, if this doesn't make someone easy to grab. Rescue mission, remember? Gage said. Save the ideas for one of our ops for later. Make a left here, Scotty told him. Hey, Gage, lend me your phone. Why? Because I want to look up info on this address. You can make life easier on a guy, you know. Here we go. Seems the place has been in the Monroe family for a few generations. And if we look into that, yeah, what I thought, you dig enough, you get dirt. Monroe happens to be the family name of a woman whose daughter married a guy named Bex, who had a son who went into the SEALs. God, I love the internet. So we've got our connection to the team that went down in Borneo, only I'm thinking now that Bex didn't die with the rest of his guys. Spencer looked up from craning over Scotty's shoulder. How does any of this tie in with Nick's death? Gage pulled out his weapon to check the clip. We find Anna, we might find some answers. An hour later, Scotty leaned forward. Slow down. The place is a quarter mile away now. Kyle pulled over in a group of trees. They had steadily left civilization behind. The road had gone from highway to two-lane and then to gravel. City changed to suburbs, which turned into rural and then into emptiness. Gage hadn't known there was still this much open land in Virginia. The thumping in the trunk had died down, meaning the fake cop had worn himself out. Gage tapped on the hood, got a kickback, so the guy was still alive. Gathering around Scotty with the others, Gage asked, What's the terrain? Scotty pointed to the tablet. We're here. Anna's last location is here. If she's not there now? Kyle asked. Gage shot him a look, and he spread his hands. You know we need a plan. If she's not here, we find whoever is and beat the crap out of him until we know where she is now, Gage said. Kyle nodded. Works for me. Gage turned to Scotty. What else do we have? Scotty shrugged. It'll be an old house. Means a lot of ways in and out. Google Maps gives a satellite view that shows it's pretty open at the front, but we have woods close to the back. Good cover. The rest we'll have to find out. Gage nodded and turned to Kyle. It was a habit. Kyle was ranking officer, and they were still a team. Kyle stared back at them, eyes bloodshot, face still ragged with grief. But he did what he needed to do. Gage saw him button it up, rub a hand over his face. He gave a nod. Check your weapons. Single file in. They headed through the woods and around the back. Gage followed Kyle, itching to pick up the pace. But they had to do this slow and easy. Hang on, Anna. Hang on. He kept thinking that, willing her to still be alive, to still be coping. After this, she'd probably want nothing to do with a guy like him, but he could live with that as long as she was alive and well. A steep incline led them to a rock outcropping. Kyle waved Scotty forward, and Scotty gave the all-clear. He also pointed down. A rusted metal door had been set into the rock. The lock on the latch was new. They all stared at it. What the hell? Kyle muttered, leaning down. Edge of the Underground Railroad around here, Spencer said. During the Civil War and before, slaves would run away, and a lot of abolitionists would help them escape to the north. A lot of folks needed hiding places, or quick ways in and out of houses. Kyle straightened. Think this goes anywhere? Gage glanced over to the roof of the house, just visible now behind a thicket of pine. Only one way to find out. He leaned down, pulled out a hunting knife. "You're going to pick a lock with that?" Scotty asked. Gage offered a grin. "Hell no." He slipped the blade, Damascus steel, under the latch and popped the rusted screws out. Locks new, but that latch wasn't. Spencer pulled out a flashlight and flicked it on. A ladder that looked more rusted than the lid led into darkness. Cobwebs clung to brick walls. "Probably snakes, too," Scotty muttered. Sitting down, Gage threw his legs into the opening, tested a rung, and started down. One rung broke under his weight, but he gripped onto the sides of the rusted railing. He made it to the bottom and glanced up to daylight and their heads leaning. He gave a thumbs up, flicked on his own flashlight. When everyone was down, Gage gestured down a tight corridor. "Looks one way. Not sure the timbers will hold. Lot of rot." He flashed his light to the roof of the tunnel. Ancient beams held the roof of what seemed to be an earthen tunnel. The walls crumbled and roots had grown into the space. Moving carefully, Gage headed forward. Kyle followed him with Scotty, and Spencer fell in at their six. Spencer dropped his voice low. "Hard to believe anyone using this to escape anything." Scotty shone his light on empty beer cans. "You can bet local kids were using this place, until someone stuck a new lock on it." Kyle glanced at them. "Put a lid on it. Keep an eye out for traps." The tunnel ended in another ladder. There was no way to go but up, and no way to know what was waiting on the other side. Kyle motioned for Gage to go first, which was fine with Gage. He headed up the ladder and hoped like hell whatever was covering it on the top wasn't locked. It wasn't, but something was holding it down. Pocketing his flashlight and tucking his weapon into his belt, Gage braced himself and started to push. Sweat trickled down his back and dust drifted into his eyes. He kept thinking about Anna. He had to get to her. At last, the weight shifted. Gage pushed hard and the trap door opened. Climbing up, Gage glanced around. Nothing but darkness. He flicked on his flashlight. The room felt like a cellar, damp and cold. It smelled of mold and stale air. Gage shone his flashlight down into the tunnel, flicked it on and off twice. The signal all was clear. He turned and headed for the stairs and the doorway, and whatever lay beyond. Hopefully, Anna was still here and still alive. Chapter 14. She needed a plan. Anna sat with her back against the wall and tried to think. She was tired, dirty, sore, confused, angry, and she just wanted to go home. That wouldn't happen if she wasn't smart. So what should she do? Play dumb? The man who had been in here hadn't seemed the type who would buy lies easily. "You aren't helping yourself," she said aloud. She scrubbed at the dirt and dried tears on her face. She needed a plan. She needed to make this work for her. All too soon, it seemed, the door opened, and the man with the scarred face walked in. He left the door open behind him and brought in a lantern with him this time. A camping lantern, but the solar, electric kind. The bright light hurt her eyes. She stood, pulling her blanket up with her and putting up a hand to shield her face. The man came over and stood in front of her. "Now, about that file." She tipped her head to the side. She let her arm down so her blanket dragged at her side. "You're Bex, right? I heard Corin say your name. But don't worry, I don't care what you've done with Corin." That wasn't true, but she decided if she lied a lot, this guy wouldn't know what was true. "How much is that file worth to you? I mean, it's got to be worth a lot, right? I mean, to you." His face remained immobile, but even in the dim light she thought she saw his eyes sharpen. "It might be worth your life." Shaking her head, she said, "No, I mean money. Look, I've never been paid crap at my job, and this file sounds like it's worth something. So I figure, why don't we cut a deal? If I had enough, I've always thought the Bahamas sounded like a great place to live." The corner of his mouth lifted. "Live is the operative word here. If you don't tell me—" "Lavender Lily," Anna whispered. The man lifted his head. "What's that?" "Lavender Lily. It's a book. I thought, well, that doesn't matter what I thought about the writing. It's a book that doesn't make sense, a file on my tablet." "Well, now we're getting somewhere." He stared down at her. "Tell me what you read." She shook her head. "My memory's not that good. Something about Florida and ghosts. I can't remember all of it." "Where's your tablet now?" Anna licked her lips. If she told him she'd left it in her purse, would he just go after it? I left it with a friend. She was hurt at the explosion at work, and I thought she'd like something to read. She was going into rehab. Bex lifted his hand and hit her across the face. Crying out, she held her cheek as she stared at him. He shook his head. You didn't visit the hospital. Hitting me isn't going to get you anything, she told him as she rubbed her cheek. And you may have had someone following me, but haven't you ever heard of messenger services? They go in and out of our offices all the time. I can get what you want, but only if we have a deal. He reached out, grabbed her by the front of her shirt, and pulled her to her feet. He smelled like antiseptic. I'm getting tired of games. Clutching at his wrist with one hand and holding her blanket with the other, Anna shook her head. You hurt me. You get nothing. Nothing. He swept his gaze down her body. We're a lot alike, you and I. We're both damaged. She twisted out of his grip. She heard cloth tear. She backed up until she hit the wall. A shot echoed, and Bex turned. Grabbing her blanket, she threw it over his head. He fought at it, but Anna slipped past him and out the door he'd left open. She ran blindly, looking for open doorways for escape. She had no idea who'd fired that shot, but she had to get out of here. Something snagged her wrist, and she brought up a fist, but Gage pulled her to him. Relax. I've got you. Gage held Anna. She sagged against him. He's back there. She pointed down the hallway. The house they'd come up in was a maze of rooms and halls. So far, they'd spotted one guard who'd shot at them. Scotty had taken the guy down. Now, Gage glanced around. They'd fanned out, and he had no idea where the others were. His job now was simple. Keep Anna safe. He pulled her with him, but she braced herself against his tug. No, you don't understand. He's back there. Who is? Bex, the guy who paid someone to kidnap me, and I heard him with Corin. Corin's in trouble. Gage was tempted to say, so what? As far as he could tell, Corin Williams had gotten Anna into this, meaning the old man was not on the side of the angels. However, if Anna was putting on the brakes about getting out of here, then maybe getting Corin out would help convince her she had to go. He put Anna behind him and put a finger to his lips. Slowly, he eased down the narrow hall. 3 doors opened, all of them to the right. He kicked open every door and found no one. Anna wouldn't look into the 3rd room, the one with the mattress and a pack of MREs in a box. Gage was going to go for that one, being the one she'd been held in. It had no windows and only one door. Great place to lock up someone. Judging by this house, Beck's family had all been weird. Taking Anna with him, Gage poked into 2 more rooms. No Corin. But he started to smell smoke. That's it. We're getting out. He threw Anna over his shoulder and carried her out. The smoke was starting to coil now, gathering at the ceiling and thickening. Gage stumbled, half blind, choking on it. He knew he should get down on his knees, get below the smoke, and Anna's pounding on his back finally convinced him to put her on her feet. They both dropped and crawled toward fresh air. They came out on a back porch, coughing. Gage stood and picked up Anna to carry her a safe distance from the house. He could see orange flames licking out of a downstairs window. Kyle, Scotty, Spence, he shouted their names. The guys stumbled out from all directions, Scotty coming out of an upstairs window and down a drain pipe that barely held his weight. Soot streaked his face. Gage glanced at Anna. We can't stay. The fire department will be here soon. Can you move? She nodded. They took off for the woods at a fast pace. None of them were up to a run. From there, they watched the house burn to the ground. Fire trucks arrived far too late, but firefighters put water on the structure and kept the fire from spreading. Gage turned to Anna. Her shirt was torn. Her hair looked a mess, but she was alive. Shivering, too. He noticed then that it was getting cold. We're losing daylight, he said. Kyle pushed off from the tree he'd been leaning against. We better move. Slowly, they made their way back to where they'd left the car, only to find it gone. Kyle swore and kicked at a rock, and Spencer threw up his hands. So much for evidence. Anna's tablet was in there, along with her purse and the rest of our stuff. It's not all bad, Scotty said. He held up Gage's phone. I copied a few files. The real question is, do we walk back to town or... Looking like we do you think we can bum a ride? Besides, my bet is we find the car's been ditched not too many miles from here." Gage glanced at Anna. She wasn't looking at him and had moved away from him, and he couldn't help but think that the real question was, did she want anything to do with a man who seemed to bring her only danger? Chapter 15. They walked as far as the highway. Scotty found a convenience store, and sure enough, there was the car parked in the back, with 2 girls hanging out. While Scotty spun stories and flirted, the rest of them washed the smoke and dirt off in the bathrooms. Anna's purse was still there, with most of her ID. All the case and the weapons they'd left behind were gone, along with Anna's tablet. The distributor wires had also been cut and the tires slashed. It wasn't going anywhere. Gage arranged for it to be towed. He had money stashed in his boot. He bought Anna a sweatshirt and a coffee. She was looking pale enough that he also bought 2 candy bars, but she waved them off, so he and Spencer wolfed down the food. Gage had no idea what kind of tales Scotty spun for the girls, but it got all of them a lot of giggles and sideways glances and a ride back into D.C. Sitting up in front between the girls, Scotty kept conversation moving, talking about SEAL training, which he made out to be more like something from the comic books, but it had the girls wide-eyed and gasping. Anna fell asleep on Gage's shoulder. Wedged next to Kyle, Gage held still so he wouldn't wake her. The girls dropped them off 2 blocks from Anna's place. She glanced up at her apartment and shivered. Gage turned to Kyle. "I'm going up to her place to get her some clothes and her cat. Then she's staying with me." Kyle put a hand up. "No, let Scotty and Spencer do that." He looked at Anna. "You okay staying at Gage's place?" She nodded. She hadn't said much, and Gage was thinking shock was settling in fast. Kyle led the way into a coffee shop. Even though they'd cleaned up at the convenience store, they got looks from others in the coffee shop, and folks moved away from their table. Anna sat with a coffee between her palms, not drinking it. Gage downed his coffee, went back for seconds, and the guys showed up at last with her stuff. Scotty had Romeo in a cat carrier, and the cat was giving low growls that warned someone was going to lose a finger for this indignity. At the sight of her cat, Anna perked up. Kyle pulled Gage aside. "You think your place is safe enough?" Gage shrugged. "Can't let her go back to hers." Scotty nodded. "No, she can't. Not until a cleaning crew's been in there. There is also police tape all over the place." Kyle pulled out his wallet and gave Gage $500. "Use it. Check into a hotel. It'll keep you both off the radar." Gage held out a hand to refuse the money, but Kyle pushed it into his fist. "Don't disobey an order." Eyebrows lifted high, Gage asked, "And what will you 3 be doing?" Spencer slapped his arm. "Seeing if there's any trail we can pick up and follow. But that will be after food, sleep, and very long showers." He nodded at Anna. "Look after her. Make sure she's okay." Gage nodded, but he wasn't sure anyone could be okay after going through shit that changed you. Some folks could adapt. Some broke. He was going to put Bex in that latter group, but he didn't know where Anna fit. He took her to the Jefferson. 100 slipped to the doorman meant not so much as a twitch over the cat carrier. Inside the room, he checked the windows, drew the blinds, and ordered 2 steaks from room service. He found Anna had opened the cat carrier and was cradling Romeo, who gave pitiful mews like a lost kitten. The big bruiser didn't fool Gage, who was getting sideways looks that could kill from the cat. Looking up, Anna offered a shaky smile. "I can't thank you enough for coming to save me." Gage sat down on the edge of the couch in the sitting room that came with the suite. "Sorry it wasn't sooner." "How long was I in there?" Anna put Romeo down and rubbed her eyes. The cat sat down and started washing his balls. Gage knew the feeling. "Not long, but that was still too long." He told her, "There's time for a shower or that bath you've been wanting." She nodded, rose, and headed into the bathroom. He heard the door shut and lock. She needed that for a time, a door she could lock herself. When room service came, Gage tipped lavishly. Anna came out of the bath wrapped in one of the huge white terry robes the hotel provided for guests. She looked pink-faced and fresh again, but she picked at her food, and Romeo got most of her steak. Gage ate his like it was his last, since you never knew when it might be. Anna's eyes were closing, so Gage came over and scooped her up in his arms. He glanced at Romeo. "Go ahead, cat. Make something of it." Romeo sniffed the back of Gage's hand, put his tail up, and stalked off to claim a silk-covered pillow on the couch. Gage carried Anna into the bedroom. She stirred, but he got her on the bed, the covers pulled down and then up over her. He straightened, and she caught his arm. "Stay. You sure?" He thumbed to the sitting room. "Romeo and I can duke it out over the couch." Smiling, she shook her head. "Stay. Please. I need something good to wipe out all the bad." He took her hand. "Nothing wipes it out, but having more good than bad helps. Let me shower first." Anna heard the sound of running water. The robe seemed bulky now, so she slipped out of it, lay in cool, crisp sheets. The room was strange, but felt like luxury. Everything else was starting to fade like a bad dream. Coming back out, Gage turned off the lights. He left one burning, and she was glad of that. Pulling back the sheets, he slipped in next to her. He wrapped himself around her, all hard warmth. She snuggled closer. He shifted his hips away, but not before she felt his erection poking at her. She put her hand on his ass. "Good things, remember?" Propping himself on an elbow, he asked, "Am I a good thing, Anna?" She picked up his hand and put it on her chest, letting his fingers cover her scars. "That guy, Bex, he said he and I were alike. We were both damaged." Gage parted his lips to say something, but Anna put her fingers on his mouth. "He's right, in a way. My scars, they're hideous, but I'm not going to let them define me. They're on me, but they aren't me." He smiled and kissed her fingers. "I could get used to this. To you. Do you mind that?" She smiled. "I think I could manage with a bodyguard." "So you don't blame me for what happened?" She touched his cheek. He looked so damn serious, so ready to break if she said the wrong thing. She couldn't see that on his face, but she could see it in his eyes. She'd never been this close to anyone, and she wondered if it was what happened when you risked your life with someone standing next to you. "Will this last?" "What, us?" "Hell if I know." A thought occurred. "Oh, hell, I need to call work. And my mother, Eloise, will be having fits if I was on the news and didn't call her." Gage leaned over and grabbed the phone. "Work can wait, but a mom can't. What's her number?" She gave it to him. Gage dialed, but he didn't hand her the phone. "Hello, Eloise? Hi, yeah, this is Gage. I'm a friend of your daughter's. No, she's fine. No, it's not like that. Yeah, someone trashed her place, so she's staying with me for a few nights. No. Oh, sure." He held the phone out. "Say hi to your mom. She thinks I'm going to sell you into white slavery or something." "Mom? Eloise? Hi, yeah, Gage pulled the phone away. "She'll call you in the morning so you can handle the press for everything. Yeah, she wants you to handle everything. We'll meet up for breakfast. Yeah, it'll be quite the event." He reached over her again to hang up the phone. Wow, she really is something else. Anna rolled her eyes. "You really shouldn't let her handle this. It'll be a full press conference." "Hey, if she does all the talking, I'm fine with that. Not a bad idea to make you very, very public with the press following you for a few days." Anna shivered. "Do you think... Bex, will he come after us? After me? What am I mixed up in?" Gage pulled her into his arms. "I don't know. But for now, just forget." She turned, pushed his shoulders down and sat up. The sheets slid off her. She didn't care that he could see her, scars and all. She was certain now she carried worse on the inside. Straddling him, she ran her fingers down his chest. "What about us?" He reached up and cupped her face. "Kiss me." Leaning over him, she did. He tasted like toothpaste, like normal. She put her hand on his chest and wondered if she could pull in some of his strength. He stroked her face and let her lead, let her do the exploring. Straightening, she asked, "You don't mind?" "You driving? Anything you want."
Sorry, readers. Here's where we fade to black due to YouTube explicit content guidelines. If you dream for the steam, you'll need to take a look in the book.
Panting, she lay still, the sweat drying on her skin. She couldn't move, not for anything. Gage pulled the covers up over them and put an arm around her. "Sleep," he whispered, and started to stroke her hair. "I'm so glad you're safe." but Anna wondered if safe had ever been a reality, or just an illusion she had constructed. Chapter 16. Gage held Anna until her breathing evened and deepened. When he was sure she'd fallen asleep, he got up. He pulled on jeans and a black t-shirt and headed into the sitting room. He'd left the lights on in here. Romeo gave him a dirty look for disturbing his rest and closed his eyes again. So much for cats being night hunters. Gage was going to guess that Romeo had never gotten that memo. Hunting up his spare burner phone, Gage punched in a number. He kept his voice low. "Kyle, what did you find in the file? How's Anna?" Gage slumped into a chair and squeezed the bridge of his nose between his fingers. "Good, or as good as can be expected. She ate some. It'll probably hit her later. But she's sleeping. I want to stay close in case she wakes." "Yeah, she'll probably have nightmares." "We're still working on the file. Scotty dug up a friend who has been known to break a few codes." Gage smiled. "Let me guess. Female and good-looking?" "You got it. On the first take, she thinks we're looking at agency stuff." "What? CIA? How the hell can she tell?" "Scotty's friend is NSA, and she knows some of the names she's seen. She's saying whoever had this list could wreak some serious havoc. Scotty's got her to agree to keep quiet as long as we can help out. She's willing to stay quiet for a time, but she's not happy about it. And what the hell is Corin Williams doing with a list of spooks?" Gage let out a breath. "You think he's a handler? Double agent?" "Honestly, Gage, I don't know what to think, or what a guy like Bex has in mind for something like this bomb. If Bex is looking for serious payback for something done to him, this could do it. Maybe he's just looking for the names of whoever set up his team." Gage sat up. "But how does any of this connect to Nick's death?" "That's another thing we don't know. Look, you stay put. We all need some rest. Scotty's staying with his codebreaker friend. Seems she comes with benefits. Spencer is hanging with me. Get some sleep and we'll talk in the morning." Gage disconnected and sat there staring at his phone. What had Anna been pulled into? It wasn't unheard of for ops to lead seemingly normal lives. Did that fit Corin Williams? Had he been agency for years, or was he really someone using this list for blackmail and money? Gage didn't know, but it was starting to seem like it was a really good idea to find out. Gage knew he should rest, but he was too wired. Actions hit him like this, left him wired and needing to do something. Opening up his smartphone, he headed online. He could at least find out a little bit about what had happened in Borneo to Bex. There was nothing much in the news. There wouldn't be. It would have been covered over and hushed up. No one liked to talk about the ops that SEALs went on. Most of it ended in classified files that the government buried as deep as they could. But Gage knew something would be out there. He headed over into the dark web, the place where the really bad stuff lurked. That was the world of drug deals, snuff photos, and worse. It was also a place where conspiracy nuts posted anything they could get their hands on. He finally found photos there, not good ones. To him, it looked like an ambush, one the SEALs hadn't seen coming at them. The guys lay dead, weapons in the kind of poses that said they hadn't been used. The surrounding area looked bad, and some of the bodies had been burned. A whole village destroyed. Gage wondered if someone had been covering their trail. Well, hell, if that had happened to his team, he wouldn't be thinking about much more than making someone pay for this too. But if Bex wanted revenge, why was Nick dead? And what did Nick's wife, Natalie Smalls, have to do with it? Was she, or had she been, one of Williams's people? Was she the one blackmailing Williams? He kept digging, but didn't find much more. Natalie's background online didn't show much of anything, other than that she hadn't been posting on her Facebook page for some time. She looked a normal kind of person, not much family. Something wasn't adding up there either. Gage checked the room again, made sure the windows were locked and the door bolted. He got another snotty look from the cat and headed into the bedroom. He climbed into bed. Anna turned and cuddled into him. For a second he wasn't sure what to do. Tomorrow he'd take her to her mother's. He'd make sure she was going to be okay, and then he'd see about stepping out of her life. She didn't need more trouble, and he wanted to make sure it stayed away from her. It was time for them to say goodbye. For some reason, the idea wasn't one he liked, but that was tomorrow. He'd learned to take what he could in the present moment. Even with thinking that, it took him hours before he finally fell asleep, his arms tight around Anna. Gage's snoring awoke Anna. She held still, listening to him breathe, feeling the rub of his stubble on her cheek. He had his arms wrapped around her like he wasn't going to ever let go. She kind of liked that. He shifted, freeing her, and she slipped out of bed. Her bladder pushed her to get up and get moving. Her muscles ached, and the red marks around her wrists looked worse than yesterday. She needed a shower and food. She headed for the bathroom, used it, and came out to find Gage and Romeo in a staring match. Gage was naked, and how did any man look that good this early in the morning? Romeo's tail was twitching. "Romeo," she scooped up the cat. "What have I said about hurting the hands that feed you? Play nice." The cat blinked at her in reply. Anna put Romeo down and came over to Gage. She sat down on the bed. "Need a shower?" The way Gage was staring at her made her face warm. She'd left off any clothes, but she was tired of hiding. If he wanted to see her, scars and all, that was fine with her. "Coffee?" she offered. "We're due at your mother's." "I've been thinking about that. I'm thinking I'll let Eloise handle the whole press conference. She's better at lying. She can tell everyone I freaked out when I came home and found my place had been robbed. I checked into a hotel, but I'm fine." Gage shook his head. "I think you should go and stay with her." Anna sat up. She frowned. "Are you kicking me out? After all I've been through?" "Not kicking you out. I've been thinking too. Your mom, she has money. Have her hire a security firm, a good one. Keep them around for a couple of weeks. Everything should be over by then. One way or another." She heard the words even though he didn't say them. Anna put her hand over his. "You are trying to kick me out of this. Anna, how long have you known me?" She shook her head. "That's not the point. In fact, I'm starting to think it's never about the amount of time. It's what you do with it. Gage, I'm not bailing on this. I'm not bailing on you." He stared at her. "Excuse me." "You heard me. Corin is still missing. We still don't know what's really in that file, and I want my damn tablet back. All my files are on it. Frankly, I'm pissed about what happened to me, and I don't feel like letting any of this go." He shook his head. "I'll shower and dress. We'll have coffee, and then I'll take you to your mom." Gage threw off the covers and strode into the bathroom. The view distracted Anna for a moment. The man had a terrific tight ass. She called down for room service, asked for a large pot of coffee to be brought up in a half hour, and headed for the bathroom. The shower was running, leaving the room steamy. She stepped in. Gage turned. "What do you think? I'm soaping your back. Got any objections to that?" "No, except that's not my back you're soaping."
Sorry, readers. Here's where we fade to black due to YouTube explicit content guidelines. If you dream for the steam, you'll need to take a look in the book.
Opening her eyes, she slipped down from him, her legs wobbly. Heat kept flashing through her in waves still. Leaning into her, he kissed her neck and straightened. "That's not what I planned." "Yes, I know. Ship me off to Mom, make sure I'm safe. But Gage, how do you know I'm safe if I'm not with you?" He shook his head. Shutting down the shower, he got out, pulled down a towel for her, and wrapped another one around himself. They were thick, huge Turkish bath towels, and Anna decided she was going to have to buy some for herself. A knock sounded on the door. Anna called out, "I ordered room service." She wrapped another towel around her head and grabbed for a robe. She didn't hear Gage's answer, so she peeked into the sitting room. The warmth drained from her face and fingers. Eloise turned from where she stood in the doorway, stylish in a dove gray Chanel suit complete with pearls at her throat. She had the preserved look of a woman somewhere between 40 and 60, and the careful makeup that put her on the higher end of that curve. Anna didn't know her mother's exact age, and suspected it might be a secret kept even from the DMV. Clutching her terry robe to her chest, feeling as always underdressed, Anna gave a small wave. Arching one perfect eyebrow, Eloise gestured to Gage with one perfectly manicured hand. "Anna, I know I said you should get a man. I didn't mean you should stage your abduction to do so." She glanced at Gage, and her stare traveled over his abs and back up again. The corner of her mouth lifted in a fraction of a smile. "Although I cannot fault your taste. Now, what are we telling the press?" Chapter 17. Gage tried to duck out twice. Once, when he'd gone to the bedroom to get some clothes on, he was thinking of trying the balcony for an exit, but Anna came in and pushed him out to deal with her mother while she dressed, and once when room service came. Eloise ruined that plan by dismissing the server and telling him to bring up a decent meal, whatever the hell that was. Now Gage hung back. Hell, the SEALs should have Eloise on their side. She pushed Anna into changing her clothes and her story. The idea that a Middleton would be shocked into running from anything by a mere robbery is absurd. We'll go with a kidnapping. You escaped, assisted by Mr. She turned to Gage. What is your name? I'd like my name left out of it. Eloise's eyes narrowed. She glanced from Gage to Anna, but she nodded. Even better. Anna, you escaped by your own abilities. Mother, Eloise, there was a fire at the house where I was held. I don't think you want the police involved in this. Just let's stick with the break-in gone wrong. I simply went to stay with friends, a wise move for anyone who has had their home violated. Eloise's mouth tightened, but she merely lifted one shoulder. Very well. You always were a difficult child. You went to stay with friends, and you are moving. Again. Today, in fact. Anna opened her mouth. Gage watched her shut it again. Smart move. He wouldn't have wanted to go up against Eloise on anything for anything. He also didn't want Anna back in that place either. Breakfast arrived. Eloise wasn't a picky eater. She downed bacon, eggs, toast, and urged Anna to eat. Eat early, not late. You know that rule, Anna. She smiled at Gage, the smile of a woman half her age flirting with a guy, and smoothed a hand down a slim hip. A woman needs a little extra something as she gets older. Now, Mr. Leave me out of it, Gage said again. I was going to invite you to dinner. Saturday, 6 sharp for cocktails. Eloise turned to Anna. You may eat light that day. I'm having Vincent cook your favorite, fried chicken. Anna rose. She put on jeans and a loose top of a bright color, but Gage could see the shadows under her eyes, olive smudges that makeup wouldn't cover, and how she'd sat with her hands tightly clasped in her lap. She stood and went to the door. Thank you, Eloise, for handling this. Eloise stood still, smoothed her skirt, and walked to the door. She paused there, her back straight and her eyes narrowing. She glanced at Gage. You do know the authorities will want to speak to you. I'll hold the press conference later today to give you a little time. Do, my dear, find some makeup. You look terrible. She swept out. Anna closed the door behind her and leaned on it. I am so sorry. Gage pushed off the wall and smiled. For what? She's going to cover your ass and mine if we need it. But I think we'd better head off the authorities before your mom does. He grabbed her and his phone and headed them downstairs. To be safe, he hailed a cab at random, got Anna inside, and asked for the nearest police station. On the way over, he went over what Anna should say. Yes, she went to her apartment yesterday. She found men there. Stick to what is true and what they need to know. He told her. They came after you. You ran and hid out with a friend. And the rest? Anna asked. What rest? That's it. When you're done, head east and meet me 2 blocks down the street. At the station, he let her go inside. He waited at a hot dog stand across the street. An hour later, Anna came out, looking weary. She headed east as he'd told her. He waited to see if anyone followed her. No one did. He stayed behind her, waited as she also waited on the corner of the street where he'd asked her to meet him. Still, no one following. No cars hanging around, no shadows. Coming over to her, Gage took her arm, and they started walking. Where are we going? She asked, her voice a little breathless from the fast pace he set. He shook his head. He set up a random path, metro for part of it, taxi for another, walking for some. He took them in circles and gave Kyle a call. Kyle answered on the first ring. Come on over to Scotty's Spare. I've got Anna with me. That's fine. We've got lunch. Scotty's Spare was an extra condo he kept in a secure building. The condo was not under his name, meaning no one could trace them there. Or at least a casual trace wouldn't work. Gage took 2 cabs and a detour through the metro again to get there. Are we going in circles? Anna asked. I hope someone is, Gage said. He buzzed the condo's number from outside, got admitted to the building, and got the once-over from a doorman who looked more like a former MMA fighter. He took the elevator up, noticed there were cameras on every floor. He was hoping the feed wasn't hooked to anything like a network. Security could work both ways, both to keep you secure and let others know where you were. He stopped at the right door. It opened before he could knock. The smell of burgers and stale coffee that had been on the burner too long hit him at once. The TV was on and football playing, the volume turned low. Gage glanced around. Scotty, Spencer, and Kyle were all here, along with 2 laptops. The place looked like a guy lived here. No decorations on the walls, sparse furniture, a mountain bike parked in the kitchen. Kyle stood. "Gage, you'll want to have a look." He nodded to the laptop. Scotty grinned at Anna and asked, "Who's hungry?" "I'm starving," Anna confessed. She came in and nodded to the guys. Scotty gave her a burger. Gage lifted his eyebrows high, and Scotty remembered he might have plates. Once Anna was seated and eating, Gage glanced at the computer screen. It looked just like what Kyle had said. A list of names pulled out of coded passages that made no sense until you knew something had been hidden inside. He looked at Scotty, at Spencer, and finally at Kyle. "I had this idea of leaving Anna with her mother. Am I wrong about that?" Anna sat up. "Yes, you are." She glanced down at her half-eaten burger. "I mean, unless you don't want me around." Kyle stood and put his hands into his pockets. "I don't want to butt into what's between you two, but Gage, we may need Anna. She is still our link to Corin Williams' company." "So you need me." She sounded perky now. Bright, but her smile faded and red flowed up into her face from her neck. Her stare slipped away from Gage's face. "I mean, you as in you guys." Kyle smiled. "We do. Gage, well, we like to let him figure things out on his own." "Doesn't sound like it," Gage said. He glared at the others. Finally, he threw up a hand. "Okay, but before this goes any further, Anna needs to know what's going on." "I'll start." "No way. It was my mission. I'll start," Kyle said. Anna looked from one hard face to the other. She hadn't known any of these men for long, but somehow she felt safe with them. She wanted to be here. She'd had dreams about yesterday, bad ones. She hadn't wanted to tell Gage about them, but now, sitting here eating a burger that had been overcooked, she felt alive. She didn't want to lose that. She didn't want to lose Gage. Kyle sat down facing her, his hands dangling between his knees. Anna swallowed a dry chunk of burger, and Kyle said, "You know Gage is a SEAL. We're a team out of Virginia Beach. I don't know how much you know about SEALs, but we're usually the guys who go out to deal with rescues, bomb disposal, and basically scary stuff. Each mission is led by a different team member dependent on what skills are required." Taking a deep breath, Kyle straightened. "The last mission we were on, I was CO. We were to track down stolen tech and retrieve it or destroy it. Should have been easy. Except it wasn't. We found the location, the area didn't seem to be guarded, and all I had to do was make sure we all got in and we all got out safely. I fucked up." "Kyle." Scotty said the word like a warning, but Kyle held up his hand. Anna glanced between the two men. She could feel the tension between them. Kyle looked tired and older than his years, and frustration just about shimmered off Scotty. She glanced at Gage and saw his lips pressed tight. He was keeping his thoughts to himself. Looking back at her, Kyle said, his voice flat, "We didn't know it until Nick went down. Master-level sniper on R6. A single shot hit Nick at the base of the skull. He was dead before he hit the ground." The burger sat like a rock in her stomach. Quietly, Spencer said, "Nick was Kyle's big bro." Anna bit her lower lip. Kyle nodded and stared at his hands. "Navy doesn't like siblings on the same unit. They hate for a family to lose big, but Nick was filling in for another teammate who was out on family leave. Wife just had a baby. For all we know, Nick may have simply been in the wrong place at the wrong time, or..." He let the words trail and looked away. Gage finished the thought. Or someone wanted Nick dead, and they knew where they'd be able to make that happen. Looking at Anna, Kyle nodded. "That's what's eating at all of us. Why Nick? Why then? I've been shit-faced drunk for weeks. He stood and walked away, heading into the kitchen. Gage took up the story. "After Nick's wake, we found out we were all under suspicion." "For what?" Anna demanded. She sat straighter, the burger clenched in her hand. "Not for your own team member?" "SOP, standard operating procedure," Scotty said. "The brass has to check out the guys with a guy when that guy doesn't come home. It happens. Could be the dead guy had it coming. Wouldn't be the first time the SEALs have taken out a bad one. Could be an accident. But Lady, we were set up. Gage nodded. Military ordnance was used. U.S. mil spec stuff, meaning friendly fire took Nick out. Our CO didn't believe the accusations and he told us to get lost, Spencer said. He gave a tight smile. Or words to that effect. Gage nodded again. We got hold of Nick's personal effects, but they weren't particularly helpful. His awards and honors, a wedding photo, a wrapped present for his wife, a flash drive, and a book, a romance. Kyle came back in from the kitchen, a steaming coffee mug in his hands. Know how many SEALs read romance? That'd be about none. I mean, maybe they look at one or two if they're about SEALs just to see how wrong folks get it. Standing, Scotty headed into a back room and came back with a photo and a book. We left the present wrapped. We hoped to get it to Nick's wife, but she seems to have disappeared. That's the book, and that's Nick's wife, Natalie. Taking the photo, Anna stared at it. She touched the images. The man looked happy, smiling at the camera. The woman, small and dark, seemed vaguely familiar to her, but she focused on the other details. This was taken in the company studio. The backdrop's a custom one. I had it painted by a local artist. It's supposed to look like the garden outside Monticello, but I wanted more color and the angles changed slightly. Setting the photo aside, Anna picked up the book and looked at the spine. This is our imprint, but I don't remember seeing it. Natalie Smalls. Oh, wait, N.T. Smalls. She's the author listed on that file Bex was after, the one that didn't make any sense. Gage nodded. Now you can see why I headed to Williams Publishing. Disappointment lifted in Anna's chest and tightened hard. You didn't come for the shoot. The words came out flat. She tried to blink away the hurt. He hadn't wanted to be a model for her. Of course not. He was dealing with life and death here. She'd been convenient. And now she was pushing her way into this when all he wanted to do was get her to step back and to leave him alone. Throat tight, she glanced at the burger in her hand. She put it back on the plate, wiped the congealed grease off her fingers. Gage's voice, low and rough, reached her. Everyone just assumed I was there for the photo shoot, so I let them. I was looking for information on N.T. Smalls, and then all hell broke loose. All her old insecurities surged up, threatening to choke her. Her palms dampened and her throat dried. She'd been convenient. But she couldn't really blame Gage for not making that clear. She'd chosen the fling. She'd stepped into it knowing he was the type of guy who didn't stay around for long. She just didn't expect. She thought it had been real. Forcing a smile, she wet her lips and nodded. I thought it was odd that a real Navy SEAL was there, but I've never even heard of N.T. Smalls. Linda, my assistant, slipped me the last book, the file that guy wanted. It wasn't even supposed to be scheduled for production. Isn't that weird? Spencer asked. I mean, you get a book and you're not buying it? She shrugged, glad for a reason to look away from Gage's intense stare. Not really. We get some good books with flaws, some that are great but just not right for us, and some that Corin just wouldn't buy no matter how much editorial or marketing begged, and some that Corin put into production even though everyone else thought they were losers. Rubbing the back of his neck, Gage glanced from Kyle to Scotty. Did you guys find out anything about that file? Scotty swapped a glance with Kyle and shook his head. Just that list of names. Alice pulled out some personal descriptions and account numbers that aren't bank accounts, but what the numbers mean, I don't know. Can I see the names? Anna said. The guys all swapped looks. She was getting tired of being on the outside of their silent communication. Mouth pressed into a line, she thought about what Eloise would do. Standing, she crossed her arms. Okay, guys, listen up. I'm the one who was kidnapped, tossed in a trunk, threatened, and who did not have a good time yesterday. I'd like to know why my life has been trashed. There's a good chance my job is in jeopardy. It certainly is if Corin is mixed up in something illegal or treasonous. And my new apartment's been trashed and is no longer a place where I feel safe. After all that, you guys still want to make this a boys' club adventure? Fine, I'll be happy to head back to work and find out what I can do to that end on my own. Scotty grinned. Spencer's eyebrows lifted high. Kyle sipped his coffee and stared at Gage. Gage shifted and waved a hand. You think this is bad, you should see her mom. Might as well show her. She's hip deep and won't step out of the waiters. Leaning over one of the laptops, Scotty pulled up a file. Knock yourself out. I've been staring at it most of the night. Sitting down again, Anna scrolled through the names. 5 of the names on here, I think they're authors, ones that are on Corin's list for him to personally handle. I don't recognize the accounts, but I can tell you they're not part of the publishing firm's accounting. Spencer's eyebrows rose again. You know all your firm's account numbers? She nodded. I've got a mind for numbers. They just stick, but I might be able to do something else. HR would have information on NT Smalls, on Natalie. They'll have an address for her, and a social security number as well. I can also check these names with HR and see what I can pull up. Kyle started to smile, but Gage shook his head. You've done enough, Anna. Scotty punched Gage's arm. Didn't you just hear that boys' club speech? Let the girl play if she wants to play. A pulse beat hard in Gage's jaw. This isn't a damn game or an exercise. People are getting killed. Anna could have been... He bit off the word. Anna stood again and faced Gage, her face hot and her breath so quick she was getting lightheaded. Killed? Raped? Tortured? What? I get it that you came for me for information, so that's what I'm offering you. Now I can dig it up for you, or I can get it for the police, and I'll be happy to pull them in on this. That is, if I still have a job. My bet is that no one's heard from Corin yet. I don't know why Bex is keeping Corin if that guy has the file he wanted, but maybe it's as confusing to Bex as it is to us. Kyle lifted his mug. My money is on Corin Williams not being what he seemed to be to the rest of the world. Anna tried not to keep watching Gage. He'd made it clear. He wanted her out of this. But she knew she could count on Kyle and Scotty to be on her side. They'd backed her so far. She wasn't sure about Spencer, and she wasn't sure how much of a democracy it would be in a group of Navy SEALs. Did they vote on things or just follow orders? Either way, she didn't want to be pushed out of this. She was a Middleton, and Middletons didn't run away. She tried another approach. In a way, I owe you guys. You wasted a lot of time looking for me, Anna. Gage started, his voice rough. She held up a hand. I'm due in the office today. I'll go in. HR will be dying to talk to me. They love to get all touchy-feely with employees. I don't know what I can get. NT Small's information might be totally bogus, but I'll do what I can for you. I need to feel in charge of my life again, and I want to make sure the guy who grabbed me ends up behind bars for a very long time. I won't feel safe as long as he's out there. Gage nodded and glanced at the others. We need to let Commander Brighton know what's going on. What if he has his orders? You gonna stick everything on him not following them and turning us in? Kyle demanded. Already have, Gage answered quietly. And how, Spencer said, but Kyle's got a point. We need to put a few things in place to keep the commander safe too. We need a safe meet, or at least a secure line to talk to him on. Shaking his head, Gage strode to the windows, his hands stuffed into his pockets. He stared out at treetops, turned back and shook his head. I still want Anna out of this now. She's been through enough. Anna spun on him. Don't you think that's up to me to decide? She walked over and punched Gage in the chest. That guy, Bex, he said I was like him, scarred. But he was wrong. I am nothing like him, and I'm going to show him you don't mess with a Middleton. I am not going to hide. I am going to fight back. There's one more thing to think about. There might not be just one file. What? Scotty sat up. Anna waved at the computer. Linda pulled that file from Corin's computer. She often sent me books she thought I would like but which were never going to make it to publication. This one, I think Corin put it on my computer, and I've got a feeling he might have a backup somewhere else. Or if he's been doing whatever he had been doing, he's got other files. Finding them means getting back into the office. I want to have a look at Linda's computer. She may have stuff that she doesn't even know she snagged from Corin, but I know what to look for. I have the author names and I've seen that one file. The room went quiet. The guys were all staring at her, even Gage. She glanced around the room, and this time she forced herself to meet his stare. He didn't look angry. He looked worried, with his forehead bunched. He let out a breath. Here's the plan. We bring Brighton in on what's going on. I'll text him coordinates for neutral ground. He turned his stare on Anna. But you, I'm sticking to you like your shadow. She shivered. A small voice in the back of her head wondered what she was doing, getting mixed up in this, but she lifted her chin and managed a smile. I wouldn't have it any other way. Chapter 18. Gage sat in his parked car and watched Anna walk into the offices of Corn Williams Publishing. He didn't like this plan, but at least he didn't have that tingling on the back of his neck telling him everything was about to head south. Of course, he hadn't had that feeling the last time he'd been here, following up on NT Smalls, and then the place had been wrecked. At least Anna had a second burner phone on her now, one Scotty could track. She also had instructions not to push it too far, and Gage was due to show up in 45 minutes, here to set up another photo shoot. He pushed out a breath, and Anna was now acting like they were done. That shouldn't bother him, but it did. Women came and went in his life, but he'd always known that one day he'd find the woman that was it for him. His bad luck that it was Anna. How was she ever going to believe him now if he told her he cared about her? Cared. How about loved? Yeah, he'd gone and done it, had fallen for her the instant he put eyes on her. The great sex was a bonus, but what he wanted was to put a ring on her finger and put her somewhere safe. Except she would hate that and wouldn't stay. And why should she believe him? On the way out of Scotty's place, Scotty had pulled Gage aside and told him, "Dude, you know me and girls, and I'm telling you right now, you're an idiot if you let this one go. Find a way to fix it, or you'll never stop regretting it." Something had changed in Scotty's eyes then. Something that made Gage wonder if there was more to his womanizing than just a desire never to be caught. He started to wonder if Scotty had been burned at some point, had let the right woman for him slip away. He hadn't had time to think about it, and he didn't want to think about it now. No, he had to find a way to let Anna know that what had happened between them was as real as it was fast. The only good news in all of this is that Anna's mother had seemed to like him. But was that really a point in his favor? Hell, maybe when this was over he should just show up and try dating Anna. But what if this never ended, or ended badly? He didn't want to wait, and he didn't want to blow his chances here. Thumbing a palm on the steering wheel, he let out a curse. He glanced at his watch. Great, 40 minutes left. He wasn't going to make it. He needed eyes on Anna. He needed her safe. You need to put your cards on the table and let her make up her mind. That had been Kyle's parting advice. Don't miss things. I've done it, and it's not good. Kyle had followed up the words with a hard look that said more about the ghosts Kyle was carrying than anything else. If Kyle could pull himself together after all he'd been through, of watching his brother go down like he had, Gage figured he could at least pay attention to the man's words. Only Spencer had kept his mouth shut, just giving Gage a look as he left with Anna, one eyebrow cocked as if he was daring Gage to try and make this work. Hell, what did those three know about women? None of them were married. Scotty changed women faster than he changed his underwear. And Nick, the only one of them who had been married, seemed to have ended up with a possible spook for a wife. Gage rubbed the back of his neck. None of that was talking him out of Anna. He kept thinking of how she looked, coming out of that house, battered, bruised, and exhausted, but still able to find a smile. How she'd curled up in his arms, so damn trusting. How she looked when she came, her eyes bright as sapphires and her mouth slack and her skin hot to the touch. She was the full package, brains and beauty and spirit that would hold up to anything in SEAL training. Yeah, she'd have made a good SEAL, but did those qualities make her a good SEAL's wife? He wondered about that. How would she deal with the separation when he was on a mission? With him not being able to talk about the classified shit that went down? Would it put space between them? Would she take it as a rejection of her? All of that meant he really should leave this where it was. Except he didn't want to. He wanted Anna back in his bed, back in his arms, and where he could keep her safe. But the truth was that none of them were safe. It was possible he might end up booted from the SEALs, or he might end up behind bars for Nick's murder. That would not be good for Anna. He had to face the worst of it, because that's what she did. Bex had the file. Whoever had shot Nick was still out there, and the team was still under suspicion. And Anna thought Gage had used her. He glanced at his watch. Another minute had crawled by. He was not going to make it, but he had to. He had to at least show Anna that he trusted her. Then he could work on maybe getting her to trust him again. Security had improved. Anna had to stop at the front desk, show photo ID, and pick up a new company badge before she could head to her cubicle. She'd set up an appointment with HR for 10:30. And since Corin had been her boss, she didn't have a boss breathing down her neck and wondering where she was. She did have marketing and editorial dropping by and emailing and calling to ask where the photos were that they needed. She got the hottest demands off her desk, emailed files, and headed over to ask where Linda's office had been relocated. Linda still wasn't back. Anna arranged for flowers to be sent to Linda, and Marcella as well. Linda was due back in the office tomorrow, but Marcella apparently was taking another week at the spa and demanding that the company pay for her stress-related relief. Or that was the gossip in the coffee room. Slipping over to Linda's computer, thankfully, Linda had been set up in the cubicle next to Anna, one even smaller than Anna's 10 by 10 space. Anna logged in. She'd had Linda's login forever, just as Linda had hers. One of the editors stopped by to demand a cover, and Anna smiled and said, "Just trying to find it now. Linda had the final files." The editor nodded, said she needed them yesterday, and Anna got back to work. She found one other file on Linda's computer, another book by N.T. Smalls with more bad writing that made no sense. It was folly to think of Nick and what might happen, but how could I forget March of 1972 when we were last with Harry? The spring winds weren't kind that April or May, and we shivered and thought of happier days in Laos. Okay, if that wasn't code, Anna didn't know what was. She copied the file to a flash drive, along with the cover editorial needed, and headed back to her own cubicle. She sent the cover to the editor who'd wanted it and pocketed the flash drive. Glancing at her watch, she saw it was time to head to HR. Gage would be in soon to set up his photo shoot, which would never really happen, and he'd want to see how she'd done. She was going to prove to him she was not just a convenience. Damn it, she wanted to rub his face in that fact. Just to be safe, she changed her login before she shut down her computer and then headed to HR. They'd been stuffed into offices next to accounting. That gave Anna an excuse to stop by and ask about N.T. Smalls. She went to Beverly, a friend she had who usually handled payments for models used. "Hey, Bev, are we doing a cover for N.T. Smalls?" Beverly looked up and blinked. She was on the downside of 50, but she still dyed her hair and tried to look younger. Anna knew why. They'd gone out for drinks once, and Beverly confessed she was terrified of being fired, for being too old. She dressed hip and young, loose tops in black, with black trousers. She also kept her black hair short and her makeup perfect. She glanced up now and asked, "Who?" Anna gave the name again. "One of Corin's authors. You know, Linda gave me a new book, but I can't tell if it's headed out for publishing. Can you see if there's a contract, or hell, even a way to contact the author?" Beverly nodded. "I know. It's nuts around here with him gone. We're all trying to figure out what deals he had pending." Anna perched on the edge of Beverly's desk. Did IT get anything out of Corin's computer? Leaning close, Beverly glanced around and then said, "From what I hear, IT couldn't even find Corin's computer. It wasn't in his office, and no one can find any backups." Anna nodded. No wonder everyone's a little nuts. "Yeah, and it looks like I can't help you here. N.T. Smalls has a general delivery box, and that's all I've got." Leaning over Beverly's shoulder, Anna scanned the records, looking for what Beverly did have. Not even a social security number? I mean, I could at least look her up that way. Nope, it's blacked out for me. I don't have security to see it. Thank you, Mr. Williams. I swear IT is going to have to go through and undo all the passwords and access, but they're dragging their heels on it. They don't want to have Corin show up and fire all their butts for poking into his files. Standing, Anna squeezed Beverly's shoulder. "Thanks for trying. I owe you lunch." Beverly gave her a smile. "Great. There's a new deli I want to try." With a wave, Anna headed over to HR. There had to be a way to access that information, and she was betting HR might have access. She knocked on Julie Ferguson's door, got a smile from Julie, and had the same thoughts she always did when she saw Julie. The woman was wasting her cheekbones sitting behind a desk. Mocha skin, high cheekbones, and startling green eyes would have put Julie on top in the modeling world. She had a slim figure, long legs and hands, and Anna itched for her Hasselblad. She'd love to get some photos of Julie. Julie, however, smoothed her suit, stood, shook hands, and got straight to business. "We want to confirm you've recovered. And this is a release form stating you're fine and you have no intention of filing for disability." Glancing at the forms, Anna lifted her eyebrows, but she started to sign. "Is everyone okay?" Julie folded her hands on the desk. "Mostly. Marcel is the only one not coming back this week. Julie's mouth tightened. I'm sending her paperwork over to her today by messenger. And if she doesn't sign, no more spa days? Anna asked, glancing up from her own release forms. Julie simply smiled. Anna bent over her papers again. What about our authors? Any of them nervous or thinking of bailing with Corin still absent? She looked up. Julie's glance slid to her computer and back. I'm sure they'll be fine. Nodding, Anna knew she had to get a look at Julie's computer. She gave a small cough, then a larger one, started fanning her face, and in a hoarse, choking voice asked, Water? Startled, Julie stood. Sit tight. She left the office, and Anna leaned over and hit a key. The computer woke, and the screen brightened. Anna pulled out her phone, snapped a photo of the information. She'd figure out later what she had. Hearing steps, she started coughing again, bumped her papers so they fell off the desk. Julie handed her the water, and Anna sipped, cleared her throat, and managed to spread the paperwork over Julie's desk, knocking the keyboard. I'm sorry, I've had this cough for days. Now I've made a mess, but I think I signed everything. Why don't you plan to take a few more days off? Oh, I'll be fine, really. There's just so much to catch up on. Paperwork in hand, Julie smiled. No, really. Don't worry if you need some time off. I heard about the break-in at your new place. You just let us know what you need. Smiling, Anna nodded, stood, and headed for the elevators. She had one more stop before Gage arrived. Heading to the top floor, she was surprised to see that much of Corin's office had been returned to normal. The files that had been thrown around were now tucked away in bankers' boxes. The debris had been cleared away, and workmen were putting the place back together. She glanced around. If Corin had a safe here, it would have been found. He had to have backups of his files somewhere, but it wouldn't be here. Giving the workmen a smile and a nod, she headed back downstairs and glanced at her watch. Gage was now 20 minutes late. She was pretty sure Gage was never late to anything. She made it back to her cubicle, grabbed her purse, and headed for the lobby. She found Gage stuck at security. Gage was arguing with them, and he looked about 30 seconds away from throwing a punch. She walked up to him. Gage, there you are. You're late. Thanks, Joe. I'll take this. She linked her arm in his. Come on. I'm taking an early lunch today. Throwing a last narrow-eyed glance at the guards, Gage told her, We're going to need your camera. Chapter 19. 20 minutes later, Gage had Anna in his car, her purse beside her, her camera bag on her lap, and her mouth pressed into a line. He kept his mouth shut, too. He was waiting for Anna to give him a sign, but she wasn't talking. He glanced at his watch. The idiot security at Anna's office had put him behind. He didn't have time to drop her off and make them meet, so he was hoping she'd be great cover. He glanced at her. She sat prim in her seat, clutching her camera bag like it was her last lifeline. Say something, idiot. But he didn't trust himself to open his mouth. He worked his jaw and finally loosened his tongue. We're headed to meet with Commander Brighton. She glanced at him, parted her lips to say something, which only made him want to kiss her, and shook her head. It's not that I don't trust you, he told her. I'm not sure I trust myself to keep you safe. I just want you safe. And what about what I want? She sounded more tired than angry, and Gage was going to hope that was a good sign. But he didn't know what to answer. What she wanted mattered, but not if it compromised her security. DC at least had plenty of public space. The question was whether to go for crowds, which made it harder to be spotted, or spot someone following, or to choose open space where everyone stood out. They'd opted for something in between. With over 400 acres and 10 miles of roads, the National Arboretum offered space and high ground, the highest ground in D.C., which had once been marshland. Gage took the long way around, heading up 295 and then coming back on 50. He parked, paid for admission, and took Anna's hand. Get out your camera. We're tourists. He let Anna snap a few shots and slowly led her towards the Capitol columns. The place looked like some kind of Greek ruin. Just columns, no roof, no building to hold up. A shallow pool reflected back the 22 Corinthian columns. The columns had originally held up the east portico of the Capitol building. Then the dome went up, and everyone realized the sandstone wouldn't hold up under the weight of that iron structure. So they'd been moved, and had been put down in 20 acres of open land known as the Ellipse Meadow. The government didn't like to waste. Gage glanced around. He couldn't see Scotty or Spencer, but he knew they had to be here, covering the spot. Scotty preferred a custom .300 bolt-action Winchester, but Spencer stuck with his issued MK-11. They'd come early to secure the spot. Nothing from them meant everything was looking good. They also had 2 escape vehicles ready. Gage spotted Kyle waiting around with sunglasses on and a guidebook in hand. Anna's camera kept clicking. Gage glanced around again. The sky was blue with a few clouds, but a sharp wind off the Atlantic was keeping the crowds to more indoor tourist spots. He couldn't help but tense at every footstep. Even a kid running around the columns and laughing had him turning fast. "Is that him?" Anna asked. She lifted her camera and was looking through it. Gage followed her shot. A man in his late 50s, in loafers, khaki shorts, and a polo shirt stood between the center columns at the bottom of the steps that led down to the reflecting pool, hands tucked into his pockets. A baseball hat was pulled low over his eyes, the Yankees logo standing out in bright white. He held a bag of what looked like bread on one hand and seemed to be feeding the ducks gathering around him. Gage wandered toward the spot, stopped, and said, his voice low, "Commander, it's good to see you, sir. This is Anna Middleton." Brighton glanced at Anna. "Get any good shots?" She smiled and aimed her camera at the reflecting pool and the ducks. "Beautiful spot like this? How could I miss?" Brighton kept his gaze on the ducks. "I've got a lunch at 2, so better make this fast." Gage did. He kept to the facts. The commander listened, and at the end of it asked, "So, Bex is alive. You actually saw him?" "The man was labeled a firebug. I met him once. He always had some sort of lighter on him and was constantly playing with the flame. It's ironic that he ended up burned. At the time made me wonder if he caused the fire playing with chemicals. As for Corin Williams, he was a private defense contractor for more years than I can count. Successful. Next thing, he's doing something entirely different. I always thought it was damned fishy. But this doesn't sound like you have enough evidence to take anywhere." "We have the files," Anna said. She lowered her camera. Gage glanced at her. "Files?" Pulling something from her purse, she slapped it into Gage's palm. "N.T. Smalls didn't give Corin just one book file. I found another on Linda's hard drive." The commander glanced at her. "Just how did you get dragged into this, Miss Middleton? And, by the way, are you related to Eloise Middleton?" "My mother, and I wasn't dragged. Well, I was, but it was by a fake cop who kidnapped me." Gage filled the commander in on how the fake cops who'd been at Anna's apartment seemed to be military. Brighton's frown deepened. "You hang on to that evidence, Lieutenant. If you're seeing Navy personnel, and I don't care if they're ex or not, involved, then I can't guarantee the security of my office." He glanced around. "That damn investigation team is howling for blood right now. I'll do what I can on my end, but I need evidence, hard facts that will hold up to scrutiny. And I think it's best if you keep working on this from the outside." He glanced from Anna to Gage and back again. "Good luck getting some nice shots, and both of you stay paranoid. It's really not clear if Bex is working with Williams or if he's holding Williams, but either way, a man with that much money is a dangerous person." With a smile, the commander tossed the last of the bread at the ducks, wadded up the plastic bag, and walked off. Gage put his hand on the small of Anna's back and led her back up the steps. Anna glanced at him. "Where now?" "We meet up with the others." She glanced behind them and back to Gage. "And then what?" He shrugged. "Think I've got a plan here? Come on, lunch sounds pretty good right now." They headed back into D.C. and to Ben's Chili Bowl, a place that looked more like a dive to her than anything, with gaudy red and white stripes and more yellow and red over the front window. Of course, she'd heard of the place. It was an institution by now, dating back to the late 50s, and the building went back even further to the early 1900s. Harry Beckley, one of the first black police detectives, had converted a silent movie house into a pool hall, and then it became Ben's. Eloise had never let her daughters into such a low-brow eating establishment. "Best hot dogs in town," Gage told her, holding open the door for her. She stepped inside and was hit with the smell of onions and spices. Gage ordered the half-smoked beef and pork with mustard, onions, and the homemade chili. Anna decided to go for the rice bowl. Gage stared at her. "Seriously?" She gave in to that stare and added an all-beef dog. They headed to the back, found Spencer, Scotty, and Kyle waiting for them, the wreckage of their lunch a pile of paper and napkins. Anna slipped into the chair next to Kyle, and Gage snagged a chair from a table where the customers were just leaving. The place was all hard surfaces and noise, but Anna had to admit Gage was right. The hot dog was heaven, spicy, moist, and just enough kick to get her attention. As she ate, Gage filled the others in on his conversation with the commander. He glanced around the table. Ideas for what we do next? Anna finished off the dog and remembered the photo on her phone. She wiped her fingers on a napkin and pulled out her phone. This might help. It's blurry, sorry about that, but I didn't have much time to get a good shot of HR's computer screen. And it's also the only address I've seen for NT Smalls other than general delivery. Gage took her phone. It's a lead, at least. He glanced around the table. We should split up for a few days. The others nodded. Meet up at the usual place in 2 days? Kyle said. They all nodded. Spencer and Scotty stood. Scotty stopped next to Anna and nodded at Gage. He won't tell you this, but I will. You did good. With a glance at Gage, he headed out. Spencer followed him. Kyle stood as well. He glanced from Anna to Gage. You better remember what I said. Gage nodded. Kyle also nodded and then left. Anna fixed a stare on Gage. Remember what? She asked. You done here? She nodded. If Gage didn't want to tell her anything, well, she couldn't make him. But the hurt rose anyway. Outside, he took her hand. She wanted to pull away, but his grip felt warm and comforting. She hung on. He helped her into the truck, but instead of starting the engine, he turned and faced her. Talk to me. About what? You're leaving, aren't you? You've got NT Smalls, Natalie to find, and you've got an address now. She pulled at the strap to her camera bag. I could go with you. He put up a hand and cupped her cheek. Bex won't come after you. The commander's got him targeted, and Bex got what he wanted, for now. But what do you want? She lifted her eyebrows. You're asking me? He nodded. I could use your help, but I could use it more if you're here, working at your office, keeping an eye peeled. We do need someone on the inside. You proved that today, and I'd like you to be safe. With my mother? She huffed out a breath. He shook his head. I was thinking, I've got a townhouse over in Capitol Riverfront. My place could use some looking after, and, well, they allow pets. Romeo would like it. You might like it. Anna swallowed. Her mouth had gone dry and her heart quickened. Are you asking me to move in or house sit? Gage scrubbed a hand through his hair. I'm screwing this up. No. She put a hand on his arm. You're doing fine. Damn it, Anna. Reaching over, he pulled her to him across the bench seat. I know it's fast. Probably too fast. We should date, take our time, but I'm not sure how much we have. Anna grabbed the back of his head and kissed him. Twisting her tongue with his, she ordered herself to enjoy every moment she had with him. She let go when she had to come up for air. Gage stared down at her, eyes dark. That help you figure out what I want? I want you, Gage, and I'll take you any way I can get you. Now do you think we could go back to the hospital so I can rescue Romeo from the staff and maybe get you naked while I can? Reaching for the hem of his shirt, she slid her hand underneath the cotton and stroked his chest. He put one hand over hers. Keep that up and we're not going to make it anywhere. So drive already. They headed back to the hotel room. Once inside, Anna tore at Gage's clothes.
Sorry, readers. Here's where we fade to black due to YouTube explicit content guidelines. If you dream for the steam, you'll need to take a look in the book.
She lay in his arms, breathing hard, sweating, her body cooling. Romeo's piteous meows pulled her upright. I've got to feed him, and probably get him a litter box. Gage pulled her back down. Already took care of it with the hotel staff. Don't listen to him. He had salmon for lunch and his litter box set up and changed twice. She gave a laugh. Great. He's spoiled already. She put a hand on his face. How long will you be gone? He shook his head. Don't know. But when this is over, she put her fingers over his lips. No promises. But I want to make them. You make me want to make them. I want to promise you everything, except I don't know if I can deliver. She smiled. You better damn well. I'm Anna Middleton, Eloise's daughter, and I expect not to be disappointed. Hugging her tightly, he kissed her. I will be back. That I will promise. You better, Gage Jackelson, or I'm coming after you. Understood? He touched a fingertip to her nose. I love you, Anna Middleton. I came into that place looking for intel, and then you hit me upside the head. I hope you believe this, because if you don't believe anything else, you should know I love you. heart and soul. Move into my place and keep the light on for me, will you, honey? Smile widening, she nodded. For you, Gage, anything. Anything at all. But Romeo's still wanting attention, so we're getting up. You're helping me move into your place, and then tomorrow you can take off with the guys. But I want some naked time with you. Lots of naked time. Sounds like you want me as a hunk of meat served up to you on a platter, he grinned. I can work with that. This has been Shooting the Seal, Saving the Seals Series Book 1, written by Leslie North, narrated by Matt Haynes.